Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Grounded TV. Another live stream. I used to call them episodes. I'm calling them live streams now because I feel like there's so many at this point. We're not even numbering them anymore. It gets out of hand too quick. We misnumbered like 3 or 4 times. We were trying to back number, and yeah, we just streamed too much to number them all. But anyways, we're going to talk about the Trudeau GST tax cut that I think is on everybody's mind as to what does this really mean for the average day Canadian. We covered the live announcement yesterday during stream, but I'm going to start off with just a quick little recap. We're just going to watch like 5 minutes of kind of a condensed clip of it just to get the meat and potatoes from it all. We don't need to watch Trudeau speak for another 45 minutes. We pretty much got everything we need in like 6 minutes of him actually talking. So we're going to just recap that. Good morning, Cryptomeria. Good morning, everybody else in the chat as well.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning, everyone. Great to be here today with all of you. Very excited to be here with the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, Chrystia, to talk.
Good morning, Robin.
Talk about something we're doing on affordability. Giancarlo, thank you so much for welcoming us here to Vince's. As a strong independent grocer, you've had a real impact on people's lives. You've also seen over the past years the challenges folks have faced, and we're glad to make a big announcement today. Tony, Francesco, it's great to be back in the region. Great to be here with all of you to talk about how we're going to make life more affordable for so many people. L'annonce qu'on fait aujourd'hui va faire de voir l'économie sur
school lunches, pressure on families, either through the program for school lunches, that relieves pressure on parents, and other initiatives like insulin or free prescription contraceptives. We're doing a lot of things to relieve pressure on families, but we know we want to do even more.
We're delivering, whether it's dental care, whether it's pharmacare with free insulin or free prescription contraceptives, whether it's more spaces and $10 a day child care that is saving families thousands of dollars, whether it's dental care that's taken huge pressures off of primarily seniors' budgets, but also others. These are things that are making a difference. But at the same time, Canadians are still struggling to get by.
Yeah, because like the cost of everything is out of control under your administration.
These elements have taken off pressures, but there is more to do. As the holidays approach, families, especially parents, are particularly worried. Canadians have been through a lot. They work hard. We see that. We've been able to get through the past couple of years. Everyone had to tighten their belts a little bit. And now we're going to be able to give a tax break for all Canadians. For 2 months, starting December 14th, we're going to remove the GST, HST from groceries, 100% of groceries, all groceries. We're going to remove the GST from restaurant meals, takeouts, fast food. Removing the GST from beer and wine. Removing the GST for essentials.
Good morning, Luca.
Like kids' clothing, footwear, diapers, and toys. All tax-free. Removing the GST.
Good morning, all you fine patriots. I love the entrance, Luca. Good morning to you too, buddy.
HST. For 2 months, Canadians are going to get a real break on everything they do. We also know that there's more we need to do, particularly for working Canadians. So if you worked in 2023 and earned up to $150,000, we're going to be sending you a check for $250 in just a few months.
In April, actually. So it's funny how he says in just a few months, but there's no actual date for this, from what I understand. From what I've heard, it's going to be in April, and it's going to be part of your tax return. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Let me know in the comments or the chat. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to recap here. So that was the announcement yesterday. Trudeau gave, essentially announcing the tax cut on groceries, like from the GST sales tax, as well as I believe Christmas decor, like Christmas trees and stuff are going to be discounted. Like, so pretty much everything aside from entertainment. So even I think like I know drinking like at a bar is apparently going to be tax-free. Like, I don't know exactly if that's like goes all the way to the restaurant level as well for food. But from what Freeland was saying is that it's going to be on all your drinks. You know, you're going to not have to pay GST. Good morning, Rob. How's it going, guys? And welcome back, everybody, by the way. Yeah, we're going to get into the next video now. We kind of just recapped the announcement Trudeau gave yesterday. And now we're just going to get into basically all the news from last night and I think a couple of videos from this morning about it. Just kind of breaking it down and going into it further, what it kind of means, and Poilievre's response to it all as well.
L'annonce qu'on fait aujourd'hui va faire
Today's announcement
beaucoup d'heureux.
will make many people happy.
Okay, they got Freeland's announcement in this one.
Trajectory of our economy
Giancarlo, grazie leur
with
inquiète de plus
an issue
l'enjeu de l'abortabilité. Had a chance to talk to Giancarlo. Tony and Francesco.
Oh, this is just the reporter part. Why did they repost that? It's just reporter
called for
questions.
removing GST on home heating and other monthly bills. Why was that not included?
I'm pleased that the NDP is getting behind
So he's asked why it's not included in heating and other monthly bills.
us on this tax break for all Canadians. We have seen, unfortunately, for the past months in the House of Commons, the Conservatives have been blocking legislation that could be passed on accelerating dental benefits for Canadians, on moving forward, on supports for families. And for the NDP to say, okay, enough is enough. Let's actually get Parliament working to deliver for Canadians. It's about time. We know the Conservatives didn't care.
It's about time you do your job, maybe. Maybe hand over the documents that are actually gridlocked Parliament over, not just the Conservatives being big bullies. Every party voted in favor of it, not just them.
About dental benefits or the school food policy. They voted against them, so they're fine blocking it in the House. But I know the NDP actually supports our national school food program. The NDP actually supports dental care. So it's been bewildering to me to see them sit back, cross their arms, and allow Parliament to be bogged down in procedural filibusters that the Conservatives are choosing to do and not being able to deliver concretely for Canadians. So to see the NDP getting behind us on a tax break for all Canadians, on support for Canadian families, on delivering money in the bank accounts and pockets of working Canadians.
Yeah, Rob, I was reading that this morning. I saw some stuff on X about it. I was like, oh God, like this isn't good. I was like, this is just, it's kind of like, at this point, I'm not shocked. I just don't even know how to feel about it. I'm kind of like, I'm worried about tensions escalating overall globally. And it seems like they're definitely heating up quite a bit.
These are things that we should be pulling together as a parliament. And I'm hoping all parliamentarians will get behind us on this.
Thank you. Last question.
Hi, Prime Minister. Laura Stone, Globe and Mail. I think when people saw that this announcement was being made, they saw Jagmeet Singh sort of take credit for it preemptively last night. They thought maybe you'd struck a deal with the NDP to end the privilege debate.
Yeah, from what I understand is the NDP was trying to do the same thing. However, heating was included and utilities, I believe, or something else was included, and your home bills, whatever the hell that means by Jagmeet's definitions.
With this announcement, it sounds like the NDP isn't prepared to do that, and they want to use other motions to support this measure. What kind of discussions are you having with that party to get Parliament moving again? I
am certainly hopeful that the NDP will see that a frozen Parliament doesn't deliver for Canadians.
Yeah, we can't have World War III yet. Trudeau's got to give us our $250, Cryptomeria. Like, come on, like it's gonna change your life, right? Like it's gonna forever fix your financial issues.
Like I said, the Conservatives have been blocking all the affordability measures that we've been putting forward, and to see the NDP tacitly agreeing with them has been a little confusing for a lot of progressives across the country. So with this measure that has to get through Parliament and get through Parliament quickly.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to. Like Greg Fergus is already being in question for being partisan. The Great Dominion, it's highly questionable if the Speaker can suspend the question of privilege for a single day to pass these measures. I don't think they're going to do it. Like, I feel like they don't even want to pass this. I think this is just a giant political stunt to try and make Pierre look bad. And it's like trying to make him seem less for the average day Joe. Like, hey, look at Poilievre. He's filibustering Parliament and preventing you from getting a GST tax cut on all your groceries and Christmas gifts this Christmas, which is only a temporary cut of this issue that we caused. You know what I mean? It's like they're the kind of party to light a fire and try and sell you a bucket of water. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they're doing. Like, it's just ridiculous.
So people can start feeling that relief at that tax break as soon as mid-December comes around. The NDP is going to have to step up and get beyond the freeze that we're seeing in Parliament. But I hope all parliamentarians.
Yeah, because from what I understand, some provinces, that's like your only sales tax. Like, unless you're in, I think, BC, Manitoba, Quebec, and I want to say, I can't remember what province it is. We pay PST as well, right? So we have a huge, like it's like 7% of our taxes are PST.
Get behind these measures.
Correct me if I'm wrong on that, guys.
These are measures that we can deliver because our fiscal situation is strong.
Yeah. Oh, whoops. Whoops. Chrystia Freeland always looks a little gassy, guys.
For removing GST on home
Freeze that we're seeing in Parliament. But I hope all parliamentarians.
Okay, we're taking you.
So we're getting into Poilievre's response here to the whole thing to see what he has to say. Because it's funny, because he wants to bring the GST tax cut on homes. It's like, he could have just stole that from Poilievre. Like, he could have just done so many different things with this. But I think the reality is it's because the NDP has him in a vice grip. They've got his you-know-what in a vice grip. And they're like, do what I say, or I'm snipping these. And like, if there's anything left there with Trudeau. But it's like, you know, like that's kind of what's happening right now. It's just like there's nothing he can really do to try and make it sound like it's his idea all along and it's their, you know, Hail Mary to save everybody in Canada. Like that's, I think, the best thing they can do. But even that isn't good enough. That is just, it's just pathetic. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, just step down, call an election, take the loss, try and come back next term. That's what you should be doing right now. If you're gonna pro-rogue, and then have a non-confidence after, you're not gonna save this campaign. But if you could just, like, that's what I mean. If you could just let Poilievre take the wheel for one term, it would help him in some sense. Like, it would be able to be like, because like it's always easier for someone who isn't sitting in office to sell themselves for the job a lot better. Because it's like, if you already have some guy working a job who's, you're not happy with his performance, you basically want to fire him every day, but you can't fire him, but you want to hire a replacement, and then you have this guy come along who's just way better fit for the job, and he's never worked for you before, so you don't know about any of this guy's bad habits either. So, but you know about all the other guys' bad habits, right? So you're not gonna want to keep the one guy who's been problematic for so long, right? Especially someone like Trudeau. Like, imagine having him as your employee, and it's like 9 years later, he's still not learning how to do his freaking job properly. 9 years later, still making rookie mistakes. It's just ridiculous. But anyways, we're going to get into this now. This is Poilievre's response to the whole GST tax cut on groceries for the holidays, as well as, I believe, home decor for Christmas decorations. And I don't know. I couldn't get a clear answer on restaurants eating out, if that's going to be removed as well. But let me know if you guys know. 2 months of handouts that leads to Jimmy getting his $2.4 million pension. Then we get hit hard come tax season. City taxes followed by property taxes. Yes, that's how the $250 looking now. But that's what I mean, right? It's like, what the hell is $250? Wait, what is that? That's like a, you know, from the government's it's almost like when someone gives you like a $5 Tim card. It's like, hey, like, I appreciate the gesture, but I can buy 1.5 coffees with this. You know what I mean? So it's nice, but $5 Tim card has kind of become like, it's like a more of just a thought, right? That's all it is. And that's what this is. It's just a thought in their bank accounts. And it's just ridiculous.
To Pierre Poilievre now, who is reacting to the Liberals' plan for a GST holiday on some items. Let's listen in.
Our Prime Minister admits that his immigration policies have ballooned the cost of housing throughout Canada. And what does Bloc do? The Bloc voted 188 times to keep Justin Trudeau in power. The Bloc voted for $500 billion of inflationary bureaucratic spending. I'm talking about bureaucracy, consultants directly, and not transfers to Quebec. And what does Yves Blanchet get? nothing for seniors and nothing for farmers. And you look Quebecers in the eye to say, if you keep Justin Trudeau in power, pour big amounts to seniors and farmers.
Did they pull out the worst translator for Poilievre's speech here?
Mr. Blanchet delivered neither one of those promises. In fact, he delivered nothing except massive spending.
Luca, the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. Margaret Thatcher. Well, that's the thing, right? And that's what it comes down to. We can see what happened in Argentina, and they're like they're at a stronger disadvantage than us, right? Because we have way more. We have so much natural resources. Like, we should not be in this situation. If we were a different country making the same decisions, we'd probably be way worse off. But we were in a very good state before all these bad decisions were made, right? We're just now seeing the descent, right? And we're sliding downhill, snowballing pretty quick, but we can still get out. Like, we can still stop this and reverse it, right? It's not too late. It'll just take time, right? It's going to take at least 2 terms of adequate management, at least, just to correct the process, to start reversing it in the other direction. But it's going to take even longer for it to actually correct itself. It could take like 20 years. And that's if you had one administration making a well-coordinated approach, right? But that's not what we see ever happen. We see a tug-of-war happen, and then the other administration reverses what the other one did, right? At least in Canada, I know people might be upset Trudeau's had 9 years, but at least compared to the US, it gives them more time to get more done.
Keeping the most centralizing government in power that broke our immigration system.
Hey, Mark, how's it going? You love this channel? I love it too, buddy. It's my favorite channel. No, thanks. I really appreciate all you guys' support. You guys are so awesome.
And a government.
You guys are so positive. It's great.
That's bad for Quebec. Now, Justin Trudeau is a desperate position. He wants to save his...
Good morning, Rhonda. People who are veterans on disability, seniors, or any type of assistance will not get the $250. Oh, yeah, I guess you're right, because they won't meet that threshold, eh? So, yeah, if they're not... Yeah, I think you have to make like 40K out of the year or something, isn't it? Or you have to make like 30-something?
Jobs. A minister had to quit because of corruption. Canadians want a new government based on common sense because they know that Mr. Trudeau broke the country after 9 years. So he'll do anything to save his job. And today is another game. 2 months before Trudeau and the Bloc impose even more inflation, more taxes, and more income tax. And again, it's only the common sense
Good afternoon, Jose.
Conservatives who offer an alternative by calling for the cut of GST on houses under $1 million to save up to $50,000 on the purchase of a new home. And we propose to cut income tax and other taxes so that work is worth it again in Canada. And we propose to pay for that by cutting bureaucracy, consultants, and waste. That's common sense. And what we're proposing is permanent. We want to eliminate GST on new houses permanently. We want to cut taxes permanently. We want to put a ceiling on spending and cut bureaucracy and waste permanently. We want to increase purchasing power and restore Canada as a country that works hard, brings home bigger pay and pension checks to be able to buy food and housing that's affordable in safe neighborhoods. That's Canada's promise, and that's what we promise all Canadians.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. As you know, after 9 years of Justin Trudeau and the NDP Liberals, everything is broken. And let's face it, the NDP Liberal coalition is back together. They've doubled housing costs, doubled the debt, doubled food bank use, doubled gun crime. With Jagmeet and Justin, it is double trouble for Canadians. Everything is broken. Life costs more. In fact, food prices have risen 36% faster in Canada than in the United States, a gap that opened up after the application of the carbon tax on the farmers and truckers who bring us our food. Now we have 2 million people lined up at food banks. This week we learned there has been a record increase in child poverty over the last year, all while Trudeau and the NDP made grand promises about childcare. 400,000 kids are forced to eat at food banks. 1 in 4 kids are not getting enough food, according to the government's own data. In fact, scurvy is making a comeback. Housing costs have doubled. Rent has doubled. Mortgage payments have doubled. Down payments have all doubled. And Trudeau's Housing Accelerator Fund, by his own admission, has not built a single solitary new home. 1,400 homeless encampments are now scattered across Ontario, 35 of them in Halifax alone. Our economy is cratering. It's dropped in per capita terms more than any other G7 country. Our per capita GDP is smaller than it was 10 years ago, even though during the same time the American per capita GDP has grown by 18%.
Thanks, Luca. Yeah, I was trying not to sneeze on camera. I was like, oh, I don't know what it was. Just some dust kicking up. With the wood stove going, I find all the dust is getting kicked up, and I'm like constantly, bringing wood in and out and stuff like that. Good morning, Jason, the conservative guy. Yeah, cancel your Netflix, eh? Freeland, yeah, cancel your Netflix and your Disney Plus, eh?
Median incomes in our two countries were equal 10 years ago. Now, they're $22,000 American bigger south of the border, where $500 billion net of our investment has poured to build pipelines, factories, businesses, and pay American paychecks with Canadian investment dollars after 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP Liberal tax increases and inflationary deficits. And the worst is yet to come. Trudeau and the NDP have voted for and legislated the quadrupling of the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre, which will stop our trucks from delivering.
Yeah, I don't know. He said he was getting sick. I haven't talked. I tried getting a hold of him last night and this morning. Couldn't get a hold of him. So I was like, well, he knows what time I'm streaming, so he can hop in anytime. I'm in the Discord, so anytime he hops in, I'll hear him.
Bring parts to factories, clothing to stores, food to grocery shelves. It will mean billions more will pour across the border into the United States. Millions of jobs will be lost, and a big smile will appear on Donald Trump's face as he picks up the phone from the Oval Office to...
How awesome is it that he's twisting this Donald Trump victory onto Trudeau in such a way? Like, I think it's ingenious, honestly.
Call Canadian factories, trucking companies.
Good morning, Jolene. Mark Works. Attack on food supply, energy values, and identity. Like taking an autumn maple leaf and ironing it between wax paper. It's a very good analogy.
Mines to tell them to go south 100 kilometers where there is no carbon tax and other taxes are dropping. The only thing worse than President Trump's tariffs are Prime Minister Trudeau's taxes. It's clear why Trump wants to create American jobs. It's not clear why Justin Trudeau wants to help him do it. And what do we have today? Well,
yeah, it's so cold. He's got his hands in his own pockets, right?
Jagmeet Singh has broken his word yet again. Remember, Jagmeet Singh said the deal was ripped up? Well, now he's taped it right back together. Despite all the poverty and misery.
We actually did yesterday, Luca. We did in the second stream. So like what I was saying is we have like we're doing a new process now. So instead of doing one long stream in a day, we're going to do more segments. Just out that Pat King is found guilty. Oh, really? I wonder what the incriminating evidence was towards that. And because I know that it was him and one other guy got honeypotted, it seemed like, part of the RCMP. But I don't know the full situation. That we covered that one time a long time ago. But the protests outside Pierre Poilievre's house, though, Yeah, we did react. We actually reacted to that, and we were talking about like what, like I was saying, I'd call the cops if this guy was in my driveway. That Greenpeace guy looks like the one guy that they chose to talk to, or the one guy that they chose to air, was just nuts. And I was like, this is like, and we were kind of saying how it's like Stephen Gobeau, and Saul is saying, yeah, it's like this weird hippie generation that's now a bunch of old dudes, and it's and they're all like super extreme about like Greenpeace and stuff. And like, didn't Stephen Gobeau like climb on someone's roof? Like, there was a bunch of stuff he did. He climbed a tower, and he climbed on some politician or some official's roof or something like that one time, apparently, allegedly. So it's kind of crazy. But yeah, that whole thing we covered yesterday, because we're gonna be doing multiple streams a day now. That is during yesterday's question period recap, our review, sorry. So we're going to be reacting to any question periods or major House of Commons proceedings, like a non-confidence vote, stuff like that, when we can. But most of the time, we're just going to be doing the morning segment, and then when we can, doing afternoon segments as well. When I'm doing a full day, I'm going to do like 3 hour-and-a-half to 2 hour segments spread out from like 9 till 5:30 kind of idea, instead of doing just all day in one stream. That way it gives me breaks, makes it easy, and then if you're in the Discord, Luca, every stream I'm going to be posting in there as well, which I forgot to do this morning. Crap, guys.
And the record gap between rich and poor the NDP crows so much about, they're now keeping the government in power that did it. You know, he said that he would not support Justin Trudeau anymore, and now he's doing just that until at least his pension kicks in next February. Jagmeet Singh has sold out Canadians to sign on with Trudeau again. And today, what we have is a 2-month temporary tax trick that will not make up for the permanent quadrupling carbon tax on heat, housing, food, and fuel, and all to save Justin's job and Jagmeet's pension. Ironically, in just a few months, Trudeau and the NDP plan to raise taxes on all the same items they claim they're giving you a break on, directly through the carbon tax.
Yeah.
They'll be raising taxes on heat.
And this is what Saul was even saying yesterday, is that when this freeze is over, they're going to get hit way harder, and it's going to line up at a fiscally hard time of year. On top of it, it's going to line up with the carbon tax increase again. So what's going to happen? I was just in the grocery store yesterday, and I saw, or the day before yesterday, and I saw pasta sauce. We're losing 50 milliliters. So it's about 7%, I think, out of the 650 milliliters. I think it's like 7 or 8%. I was doing the math the other day. And the price didn't change at all. We just lost like almost 10% of it. And that's what's happening to all our food. We don't even realize it's happening, right? Like, if you look at the lids are different now on certain containers. If you notice any packing differences, look at the weight. Look at how much it is now. And if you have the old product, which is, it's convenient because I live in a rural area and I can see we have old and new product on the shelf at the same time, because the old size is still adequate and like it's still okay to sell. So you have them side by side. I'm like, you literally can see the difference, and they're the same price. It's just ridiculous.
On gas?
Yeah, I don't know too much about the whole Pat King thing, but yeah, he's got, I think Great Dominion was saying he's been charged with 5 different charges. Me and Saul looked into it one time, and it was hard to find much about him, really, about that made him seem innocent at the time, besides his own testimonies. And then I basically watched his whole interview on Viva Frey, and he did a whole interview. I can't remember who else he did. He did an interview on something. I think it was a smaller, I can't remember what show it was, but I've listened to him talk for like 4 hours total. Like, he sounds like legit, but at the same time, I'm not seeing much evidence point to the fact that it wasn't like, I think these guys just genuinely thought that their country was being taken away from them, and they reacted that way, right? And I think there's a lot of people who would react similar if they knew if they believed that was going on as well. And it was, because like, it was pretty crazy at the time, right? Like, who knows? And it was that whole Coots border thing that led to the Emergencies Act being used. So it's like, the whole thing seems a little convenient for certain people as well, right? So it's a really messy situation, and I feel like it's unfortunate he was found guilty, but I think only time's going to tell what really happened there.
On everything that comes in a truck, if you got it, a truck brought it, and it will be more expensive with this carbon tax. They even plan to jack up liquor taxes in April while they claim to be taking them off for the next 2 months. That sounds like a trick. A trick. Are you fooled? You don't look like you're fooled. He can see the trick. Like he's even he's laughing. Nobody believes Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh after they've impoverished our people and made life worse off. The good news is there will be a carbon tax election, and Canadians will choose between the costly NDP Liberal carbon tax coalition that tax your food, punish your work, double your housing cost, and unleash crime and chaos in your community, or common sense Conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. But we have solutions, and we're offering them today. We're calling for an alternative, which is this: permanently axe the carbon tax. Permanently take the GST off new homes to save people up to $50,000 on a new home purchase and stimulate 30,000 extra home builds every single year. A permanent tax cut that will boost our economy. Cutting taxes on work, savings, investment, energy, and making stuff in Canada. In other words, let's bring home more paychecks and production to our country. More importantly, let's bring home Canada's promise. A very simple promise that brought us all here, and it is this: that hard work gets you a powerful paycheck and pension that buys affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods, a country where anyone from anywhere can do anything, the freest country on earth. Let's bring it home.
Greenpeace était chez vous ce matin. Greenpeace était devant chez vous ce matin. Est-ce que vous avez quelque chose pour rassurer les écologistes?
Well, the NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, he is now reacting to the government's plan to pause GST on some products. Let's listen in.
A tax break for the working class, and we're delivering. I've heard again and again from families how they are feeling so squeezed with the cost of living crisis. Families that have had to cut back on monthly costs, like taking their kids to swimming lessons or other extracurriculars. They go into the grocery store and they can't actually buy all the items that they need for their family, for special gatherings. All the while, they see CEOs get richer and richer. So we said, as new...
This is from last night, yeah. So this is their repost from yesterday. Sorry, guys. We reacted to the full speeches of what they were saying yesterday. We're just kind of like recapping at this point. I'm not watching the whole videos. I'm just trying to make sure we get all the information there. And we're going to be getting into a few panels after all these pretty soon.
Democrats, I believe, and we believe, that we need to take the GST off of daily essentials. Let's give working class folks a bit of relief, a little break. And so we wanted to see the GST removed from things like your cell phone bill, your internet bill, your home heating bill, from your daily necessities, like going to a grab-and-go grocery store, grab-and-go items at the grocery store, or your essentials when it comes to kids, clothing, diapers. And we fought for this. We said this is important, and the Liberals informed us that they had caved to our demands. But they included a Liberal letdown. This is temporary, and it doesn't include the monthly bills.
Yeah, he's just a sideshow, honestly. That's why Sideshow Singh is my favorite name for him.
But we know that middle-class families need a break. So we're going to work as hard as possible to get this done as quickly as possible. While the Liberals have let you down, Pierre Poilievre and Conservatives are missing in action. They're too busy playing games in the House, and all that Pierre Poilievre wants to propose is to cut the things that you need to make your life even more expensive. So this is what we are committing to today. We want to see this relief done as quickly as possible. So we're prepared to pause the privilege motion that's being debated in the House for 1 day, get this bill passed in 1 day, so that working families, so that middle-class families can get this relief as quick as possible. And then, when I'm Prime Minister, I will make it permanent. I'll do that again in French, and I look forward to it.
See what he says? When I'm Prime Minister. So we're going to cut it there. I think he's just going to repeat the same thing in French. So, when I am Prime Minister, he says, all right, so never is basically what I just meant. I think it's ridiculous.
Mr. Prime Minister, thanks so much for joining us up here in East Gwillimbury at a local grocer. I know that you're here to talk about affordability. So let's start with the timing of this announcement. We're about 2.5 years since inflation peaked, over 8% back in June 2022. So why are you making this announcement now as opposed to sending out that life raft back when families were dealing with an acute inflationary crisis?
Well, first of all, right now Canadians need a break, and we're giving them a break. We are taking off the GST, HST on a whole range of items items for next 2 months, from mid-December to mid-February. Groceries will be GST free. The restaurants, takeout, fast food, beer and wine, taking the GST, HST off of that, and then kids' clothes, toys.
Yeah, that's what's crazy is a lot of the taxes we pay today were brought in a long time ago as temporary measures, and they just never left. And every party's had chance to be in power since then, right? So it makes you really think about just government as a whole. It doesn't matter what party they're from, right? Like, this is what it does. It's like a constant tug of war for your freedom and rights. That is how you participate in a democracy. It's never over. And you have to train your kids and let them know, like, look, this fight is always going to be happening. And I think that's something my generation is understanding now, that I think there was a bit of a gap just because of times were really good for a long time. And I think everyone's kind of on that page now because, that generation when they were my age is older and now they understand what's going on. But most people when they were my age previously didn't quite have, like, my parents weren't teaching me that. And now that I'm older, it's funny because now they're huge on this stuff and they're trying to teach my kid and Saul's kids about, fighting for your rights and everything like that. And it's funny how much they've changed, right? And I think it's also what I think just the times have done to people is they've made them realize how important those values are and how this fight is never going to be over. And it's just a tug of war constantly. Even with Polyev, we're going to be tug of warring for our rights and freedoms and having to put pressure on certain things we disapprove of. I remember when a rainbow was cool. Yeah. That's the other thing too, is how long is after all this craziness ends, what's going to happen to that? What's going to happen to that, right? It's wild, right? Because there's some symbols that are now horrific to some people that used to be symbols of peace and equality. But anyways.
Whole range of things that are going to take pressures off people right now. And we can do this because inflation is now back down and interest rates are coming down too. So it's a recognition of the challenges people have had. But over the past couple of years, whether it's been on dental care, whether it's been on expanding childcare.
Saul's in here now. Yep, what's up?
Spaces at $10 a day.
All right, Saul's gonna be hopping in like 5 to 10 minutes, guys.
Across the country, whether it's been on things like moving forward on prescription contraceptives for free and insulin for free. These are things, along with the school food program, putting money in people's pockets without pushing inflation higher.
You said in your remarks Canadians are still struggling to get by, and they are, and that's evident when you look at the food bank statistics. Just a couple of weeks ago, I covered the latest Who's Hungry report, and in the city of Toronto, record levels, 3.5 million visits over the course of the year, higher than the city's population. So why now, Mr. Prime Minister? Why not 2 years ago? So it could have helped people from ever having to get in that line and show that vulnerability and ask for help.
Well, global inflation hit everyone very hard, and we've been driving down inflation, and that's where putting money into people's pockets right now is going to help as they're still squeezed. But over the past years, whether it was a grocery rebate that we put forward, whether it's moving forward on school food programs, whether it's investing to support seniors, investing in supporting families, expanding the Canada Child Benefit, these are things that have gotten people through while at the same time bringing down inflation.
Are you doing this, sir, with all due respect, out of desperation because for the past year you've been double digits behind Pierre Poilievre?
We have been, over the past few years, delivering on affordability supports for Canadians, whether with the Canada Carbon Rebate that puts more money in people's pockets, whether it's with the school food program, whether it's dental care, whether it's pharmacare. We have been stepping up for Canadians, and we're doing it even more right now with tax relief off the GST, HST, big break for Canadians for 2 months as we end this year, as we start next year, as well as the Canada Workers Rebate, which is going to be a check for $250 for anyone who worked last year and makes less than $150,000.
I want to ask you about that check because it wasn't too long ago Premier Doug Ford issued a similar announcement. He did not account for income. You're supporting Canadians and giving them $250 if they made $150,000 or less. Opposition leaders, including Boddy Crombie, who I know you're going to see tonight, said essentially the Premier was buying people's votes with their own money. Isn't that what you're doing?
Canadians need support, and I think...
Yeah, time is up for the ENDP fibberals. I like that, Jason.
Recognizing that people who were working hard need that little extra benefit. But I agree, not sending the checks to millionaire families, making sure that they're targeted on people who are hardworking. These are the things that we're doing because we recognize that Canadians are hurting, even though the Canadian economy is getting better, even though our fiscal position as a government is one of the strongest in the world. We need to put that in service of Canadians, and that's why we're delivering the Canada Workers Benefit.
You think this tax holiday is going to help Canadians? Why don't you put a holiday on the carbon tax as well?
The price on pollution, the carbon tax, puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10.
He's asked, like, really? Did you hear that? Like, he's asked why he doesn't like temporarily suspend the carbon tax. And he's just like, are you kidding me? We can't end this price on pollution.
Canadians, people across Ontario, the middle class.
Gives more money people back.
Like,
dude, like, come on.
Get back.
He doesn't want to be accused of the Jagmeet Singh thing.
3 months from the Canada carbon.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say he doesn't want to be accused of just listening to Pierre Poilievre. That's probably why.
Rebate, then they pay on the price on pollution, on the carbon tax. So it's an affordability measure that's also driving down emissions and spurring innovation. So it's good for Canadians, and unfortunately Pierre Poilievre wants to take away the Canada carbon rebate.
The PBO actually said when you look at the full national...
He wants to take away the Canada carbon rebate, not the tax, guys. Just the rebate, right? See the way he talks? Like, he's just such an idiot.
...impact of the carbon tax plus the rebate, the vast majority of Canadians are actually worse off. So why not actually, if you're looking into affordability, scrap the tax or as Premier Ford's calling for today, pause on it.
Okay. The Canada carbon rebate puts more money than the actual price on pollution they pay. The PBO confirms that. Now, if you bring in larger issues, you have to bring in the cost of inaction on climate change. People know that worse extreme weather events, worse floods, worse forest fires across the country are very expensive. Having to build stronger infrastructure, more is expensive. The costs of climate change.
Luca wants to buy him a comb.
Here, no, I was just gonna say, I don't understand how nobody's had a talk with him about how he's like butchering this talking point. If you're gonna bring up the forest fires and the floods and all that stuff, why don't you say, hey, all of the money from this carbon tax, where do you think it's going? Where do you think we're investing?
Because it's not going there. It's not going there. That's the problem. It's going.
What do you mean?
To apparently most of it's going to drainage infrastructure. Apparently to deal with the increased precipitation
to deal with
or
floods.
something. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, none of it's going to the forest fires. They're not fighting. Like, the forest fire is the number one concern, in my opinion. If you're concerned about CO2 emissions, if that's your number one concern, your number one concern in Canada should be forest fires. This is the biggest contributor.
Well, rising, like there's places in BC, especially, where like flood risks are increasing every year, right? Like I can see it in my own backyard.
Yeah, but that's
like,
part of it. That's part of it,
getting
right?
higher all the time, right? Yeah,
well,
that's
water
fine
does,
if it's going into drainage.
Water does get a little bit. I don't know. It's water. Like
floods into your house.
I don't know. I just think
every year.
We can't even really get into full conversation about this.
Sure.
On YouTube.
All,
but like,
all I'm trying to say is that if he was smart, that's how he would actually explain it. But clearly, like I don't know if he's just not listening to anybody around him or nobody's brought this up, but it's like really silly and stupid.
No, I agree. I do agree with what you're saying. I just don't agree with the other things you're saying. But besides the point, I'm not a professional of any kind of meteorologist or climatologist or scientist in any way or shape or form. So don't take my opinion. Take my opinion with a grain of salt, you know. But all I'm saying is with this whole thing is why aren't you fighting forest fires? Why aren't you saying forest fires are our number one concern? That's why we're going to use this money. We're going to increase the forest firefighting force. We're going to try and make deals with other countries to bring in aid when we need it. You know, we have a good relationship with Australia.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? For these same reasons, it's like, you know, why aren't we doing more of that instead? Because I think forest fires are what's really affecting it. No one can deny their effect on the country, right? So I think that is something you should focus on, but he doesn't, because that's probably the hardest one to tackle out of it all. And I don't think the situation is being managed effectively enough for it to be effective. Like, it's just, the money is just going to debt at this point. I don't think there is a very, if you can find it for me, please, someone in the chat, comments, or Saul, if you can find me where every dollar of this tax is going, maybe we'll think differently about it if we knew. But let's see where it's actually going.
I don't think it matters. Even if we did find out that he was spending the money super responsibly, it's not like he's able it's not like he's able to communicate that to the public, right?
Because I don't think he is.
And that's
right?
all that matters at the end of the day.
But anyway, my whole point is I think that they should have axed they didn't want to axe the carbon tax to give it to Poilievre, but imagine if they did, how much steam, like Poilievre's literally trying to trigger an election on this issue. So you could literally take that wind out of his sails.
I know.
With one move, and he just doesn't do it, right? So it's just like,
I know, and he could even if there is money already allocated to those things, he could say we're increasing the amount of the carbon tax money that's going to go to fight forest fires, which are having a huge effect on the communities and blah blah blah. Like if he was to do that and say, you know, we've realized that people don't understand where this money is going, and so we're going to be more transparent about this and show that this money is being used to help protect people's homes and blah 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 blah. Like it's so easy to just say something that resonates with people. It's so frustrating how out of touch he is.
And like this is why people get frustrated with like foreign aid and stuff, because you know, if someone bringing up in the chat saying like how much we could have put that money towards fighting our forest fire issues, and that's kind of what I mean, right? It's like it's not the fact that he's helping out these countries that's the problem. The fact is that your country's literally burning to the ground economically and physically, and you're doing nothing about it. You're just like pretending like it's not happening. You know what I mean? Like because you can't see the smoke in Ottawa, you don't really, it doesn't click for him, I feel like, you know. But anyways, let's push forward here. I feel like we've paused for quite a bit.
The costs of not acting on climate change are massive. Now, some people think, okay, we shouldn't do anything on climate change, but if you're not fighting climate change, you're not building a strong economy. So we're fighting it while putting more money directly into people's pockets, and they see it. Every time that Canada Carbon rebate check arrives, every 3 months, they're getting hundreds of dollars that is helping offset the cost of living as well.
Why not help Canadians by helping them with their heating costs as well, as the NDP was calling for specifically?
We have moved forward on getting people off of home heating oil onto heat pumps, which saves thousands of dollars a year in terms of savings.
That's what I mean.
We
right?
know that the people who use home heating oil tend to be more vulnerable.
No, he's just an idiot.
Lower income. Changing that with a heat pump is going to save millions of dollars across the country and around the world.
Here, 1 second.
Why we're doing that is to actually save people money. We have programs putting forward where we're working with a number of provinces to give heat pumps for free to lower income Canadians, and we certainly hope that people are going to move forward on that program.
You're here in the GTA PM, but out in Ottawa, the big story today is Edmonton Centre MP Randy Boissonnault. You put out a statement yesterday saying he was stepping away from cabinet to clear of any of these allegations relating to Indigenous identity. Did you ask him to step away, or was that decision he made?
We had a conversation, and that was the decision we made together.
The statement made it sound.
I missed that yesterday. To add to the Randy story, he was just asked, was that your decision or Randy's decision for Randy to resign? He said, we made the decision together. That means he made the decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So
yeah.
it's like, obviously Randy's guilty.
Why didn't he
as
just
they
say
come,
that?
right?
I just don't understand why he wasn't just say that. Just say
make the party look, because
I-
it'll be used against him. It'll make the party look bad, right? It'll make the party look
This,
It's
how
like-
does this look better though? That's what I don't
Nothing
understand.
looks
How does
better.
This look any
you
better
can
than
only
that?
put so much lipstick on a pig. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he's
There's
not
a-
even
there-
trying.
there's
He's
an
not even
extent.
putting. That's what I'm saying is he's not even putting lipstick on the pig. He's just saying, "Oh yeah, this is a beautiful woman. Look at my beautiful," and it's like a pig there, and you're like, "This is a farm animal. What are you talking about?"
We're delivering beautiful women for Canadians. Here's 5 pigs. It's you know, it's the whole thing is just ridiculous. Yeah, it's Randy Bobandy there. It's just Anyways, we're gonna get into the Blanchette's response to what was said about the GST relief, and he called it a trick. So we're gonna listen to his.
It's a stupid trick too. Like they're gonna get a spike in 2 months. Everybody's gonna see the prices go back
Guess
up.
what?
What a
The carbon
stupid,
tax.
stupid plan.
The carbon tax is taking another step right after too.
Yeah, so dumb, dude. Like it's just there's no strategy.
Yeah, Robin. Just
It's like watching
emojis.
somebody just punch themselves in the face over and over and over again.
Yeah, the shit hawks are coming.
Does that officially mean that you will not stand behind the tax relief that Mr. Trudeau announced today?
I won't stand behind who?
The tax
I'll have my
relief,
camera up in a
the
second.
tax Will you vote against the GST?
What I'm saying is, you know, that's a tactic. That's a trick. If people get more money in their pockets, I would be ill-advised to say I'm against the idea of it. But I'm clearly against the idea of a prime minister who says, I will give you money in order for you to consider voting for me. That is against the very principle or the ethics of the job. So, and I don't know how it will proceed. So how are we going to vote, at what time, through what procedure? I do not know, and I cannot answer that. More than that, they probably cannot tell you either.
But if you were to vote, would you officially vote against it?
You know, I will never answer to such a hypothetical question.
Oh, he just dodged it.
For 2 months, starting December 14th, we're going to remove the GST, HST from groceries. 100% of groceries, all groceries. We're going to remove the GST.
They're just recapping the statement and they're going to get into talking about it. So just recap this for people just tuning in. It's like 30 seconds.
From restaurant meals, takeouts, fast food. Removing the GST from beer and wine. Removing the GST for essentials like kids' clothing, footwear, diapers.
Yeah, see, it's beyond just groceries, but it's essentials, groceries. I think some home decor, like Christmas stuff, is being considered. From what I heard, is Arif Virani or whatever his name is, I can't pronounce it properly, said Christmas trees will be GST free. So I'm assuming that's in there somewhere.
And toys, all tax free. Removing the GST and HST.
The CBC's Karina Roman is on the story and joins us live in Ottawa. So Karina, take us through the nuts and bolts of this plan.
Well, you heard some of it there, obviously, but yeah, in terms of the news, you can use what people can expect if and when this does become passed. We're talking about the removal of the GST and the HST on prepared foods, restaurant meals, groceries.
So it was restaurant meals, so I'm not wrong on that. Prepared foods, restaurant meals. So basically means eating out, having a drink while you're eating out, groceries, other essentials like diapers, formula, I'm guessing maybe soaps and things maybe, are all like no GST, HST. But from what I understand, someone else was saying in the chat that for the HST side of things, the provinces have to go along with that. So we'll see what happens there.
Now, some groceries were already exempt, you know, fresh foods and that kind of stuff. So this is sort of more about snacks and prepared foods like the rotisserie chicken when you enter a grocery store, sometimes there for you just to take home. But also for restaurants that you go to eat or take out from, beer, wine, cider, and pre-mixed alcohol beverages, but those in terms of only below the 7% alcohol, children's clothing, footwear, car seats, diapers, children's toys, certain types of toys, not all toys, books, print newspapers, and puzzles. Also Christmas trees, if you want to wait to get your Christmas tree until December 14th, because that is when they're talking about this going into effect, from December 14th to February 15th. So that would be the pause on the GST, HST, and they have sort of an estimate in terms of if you were to spend $2,000 on these kinds of qualifying goods, you would see a savings of, depending on what province you live in, between $100 or even up to $200, depending on what province you live in. So because of the GST and the HST combinations. So that is the nuts and bolts of.
Yeah, and we went over that a little bit yesterday. And especially if you're in a province that pays PST as well, you're really not going to see much of bonus from this. Like BC, like British Columbians are going to be, I think Quebecers are the least affected, and the next is British Columbians.
Then there is this check that would go out to all Canadians who make less than $150,000 a year.
Bribing you with your own money.
Who worked in 2023, and that would go out in the spring. So that's not an immediate check that people are going to see. This is along the lines of.
Oh, Newfoundland said they'd remove PST too, eh?
Other promises of checks we've seen from provincial governments. And Justin Trudeau was asked, though, how they came to the 150,000 threshold that some people would perceive a person to make that kind of income as doing okay and perhaps not in need of the help. Here's what he had to say in response.
I will highlight that costs have gone up for everyone, and even someone making $130,000, $140,000 a year is cutting back on restaurants, is thinking twice about what groceries they can buy.
Yeah, because it's so bad here. You know what I mean? Like, people who make $150,000 have to think twice about what they do.
Is being thoughtful about the price pressures on us all.
150,000.
So that's the threshold for this, right? And I was just saying, yeah, he's saying even people make 150,000 have tough choices. Yeah, because it's so bad under your administration. You know what I mean? Like, it's so bad.
We see middle-class Canadians, and we're going to be there to help them.
Sorry?
I was just gonna say 150,000 is a lot. Like that, you need to be spending pretty recklessly to be.
That's what I mean. It's like, why not?
there.
Like, I feel like 90,000 is, I think, what they're saying the poverty line is in the harshest of provinces, which is BC. Basically, I think the lower mainland of BC is considered like 90,000 is the poverty line now because of how much your housing is.
Them out as well. This is a choice we're making that is delivering for Canadians at a time where, yes, our economy is turning the corner, but people are still facing that squeeze. This will help us get through it.
Now, Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister, was also there at the announcement, and she talked about sort of, I guess, a secondary benefit. You said this is definitely how they're framing it, is an affordability measure, but this is also about possibly stimulating the economy. Obviously, you know, there's concerns that this could overstimulate an economy. That's why the Liberal government says they didn't do this kind of check give out or even the relief of the GST previously when inflation was high, but inflation is within target. So she says this is okay to do at this time. That's how they're rationalizing it. But the second benefit is that it can stimulate the economy a little bit and get people spending, especially at a time when they're still feeling the squeeze. And so when she talked about spending, she said that the economy on that side, the consumer spending side, is still quite fragile. And if we want to continue to have a soft landing and not dip into recession, this could help with that as well.
And Karina, we heard from the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, Andrew Furey, saying that we will be removing the HST from many goods and services for
Oh, there you go. That's what, who was saying that in the chat just a few minutes ago? I feel like that was Great Dominion. Yep.
2 months, saying he was pleased to work with Minister Freeland and Minister LeBlanc on the measure to help with the cost of living. So I think we're going to I'm trying to figure out exactly the nuts and bolts of all of that in terms of how much that would be. I guess it depends on the province, depends on whether the federal portion of the sales tax is harmonized with the provincial portion and all of that. So that's something to wrap my head around. We've already heard now from the opposition leader and from the leader of the NDP. How are they responding?
Well, interestingly, or maybe not, surprisingly, Pierre Poilievre not jumping on the bandwagon and saying what a great idea, because he says that this is a desperate measure by a desperate prime minister, and there is politics in this. This is obviously not just about the finances and the economy. There is a political...
Wait, 150 take home? That's like over 200K a year in BC. Like, that's what you're making to take home 150.
Motive to these kinds of things as well. So Pierre Poilievre not impressed by this move. Have a listen to what he had.
Checks, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be part of your tax return, the 250 per person. So I think, like, if you're a married couple, you're going to get like 500. I think it's per individual.
Oh, okay. Do you get it for your kids too, or is it just?
I don't know. But I just think it's they said in a few months, but someone was saying it's not going to come until after tax time, like April.
And today, what we have is a 2-month temporary.
Oh, yeah. See you later, Jason. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, have a good one, Jason.
Tax trick that will not make up for the permanent quadrupling carbon tax on heat, housing, food, and fuel, and all to save Justin's job and Jagmeet's pension.
Now, what he means by that is accusing the NDP of supporting the Liberals for personal reasons, and the NDP.
So basically, if you're taking up to, just to make sure I got this correct here. So if it's take home, if you're taking home $12,500 or less a month you're going to qualify. If it's take home. If it's pre-tax, like you're basically, it's like 8 or 9 grand, depending on what province you live in, really.
In this case, it says they will support this measure, so much so that they're willing to help end the logjam that's currently in the House of Commons over this privilege motion that's just been filibustered for weeks now, for a day in order to get this passed. And so that is something that Justus said that's how they're going to do it. That's how they're willing to support it. It's not a get-out-free card for the Liberals on the privilege motion, just for this piece of legislation whenever it comes down in the next little while. But also saying that this is, you know, something he supports, but it's a definitely watered-down version of what they would have liked to have seen brought in. Have a listen to what he says.
We believe that we need to take the GST off of daily essentials. Let's give working class folks a bit of relief, a little break. And so we wanted to see the GST removed from things like your cell phone bill, your internet bill, your home heating bill, from your daily necessities, like going to a grab-and-go grocery store, grab-and-go items at the grocery store, or your essentials when it comes to kids, clothing, diapers. And we fought for this. We said this is important, and the Liberals informed us that they had caved to our demands. But they included a Liberal letdown. This is temporary, and it doesn't include the monthly bills.
But he said that that does not prevent them from supporting it. They say they're not giving the Liberals, they're not letting the Liberals off the hook, but they do recognize that people need supports and help at this time, and so they're willing to support it. He did say on the check issue, he's also going to support that, although that wouldn't be the way that they would have gone about it if they had designed this measure.
Karina, thank you. The CBC.
Yeah, so like basically with that whole thing, it's just wild. Like if that's 150,000 pre-taxes or post-taxes, like after deductions and everything, like I said, that's like 200K a year, over 200K a year income in BC, to be taking 150,000 home pre-tax. And like I was saying, it's kind of funny because to the government, it's kind of like almost like they're giving you a $5 Tim card. You know what I mean? Like it's something, but it's not gonna make a big impact on your life. You know what I mean? Like it's not gonna, like maybe you could do a few things, but like $250, how far does that really go?
I don't know.
Nowadays?
I mean, it goes pretty far for people who are hurting really bad, right? I think if I was getting a free $1,000 or whatever, and I was like at younger age in my life, I would have really appreciated that, right?
Yeah, but even these days, like that's not much money, right? That's like 2 weeks of groceries if you're frugal. You know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous. It's
yeah, but
not
that's
much,
a lot.
right?
2 weeks of groceries is
it's still
is
not
a lot,
that. It's
right?
still not going to fix your situation, right? Like that the whole idea that this is going to provide some major relief is silly. It's not.
Yeah, it's just relief.
It's barely any relief, and it's really the real relief would be axing the carbon tax at this point.
About the plan for GST
per person.
Like, what do you, not really. It would have a longer time to take effect, but it would lower the cost of goods overall by a significant amount.
Over a long period of time, it might, but, or it would, but it would take a while, and it probably wouldn't be as much as like an actual $250 to like $1,000 paycheck in your bank account. I mean, it's less. This is stupid though, right? This all
like they're already trying. Their budget's already coming into question, and they have to work this in.
It's just throwing a bone, right?
Relief and for checks to Canadian workers. We have our panel of political strategists with us. Susan Smith is a former Liberal strategist, co-founder and principal of Blue Sky Strategy Group. Cole Hogan is a conservative digital strategist and a principal at GT and Company. And George Sewell is a former...
It's so funny because someone was just saying all the Liberal commentators always have these big glasses, and then she comes out with these big glasses.
Former NDP Director of Communications, now a principal at Syntax Strategic. Susan, I'm going to begin with you. We have this government announcement on GST tax relief on checks coming as we head into the holiday season. Will Canadians see this as a serious policy move when it comes to affordability and the cost of living? We know these have been top of mind.
I think it's a good political move. And I think Canadians aren't actually thinking about policy. They're thinking about their kitchen tables. And I've said this many times on this show.
She's the Liberal commentator, guys, by the way.
That governments do best when they focus on issues that matter to Canadians' kitchen tables. And I mean that their families and their family homes. And I think this announcement addresses that. It takes the GST off all groceries now. It takes the GST off children's toys and clothing and diapers and important things. It takes the GST off restaurant meals and takeout food. Those are things that Canadians notice. So the government, I think, has made a shrewd political move. I think it surprised Mr. Poilievre and his team. It's something that will take effect before Christmas. It will perhaps drive people more, or make some people more comfortable going into restaurants. It will make a difference on people's grocery bills. So they will notice it, and they'll be talking about it over the Christmas holidays. So I think the government's goal is to have something good to be said about going into Christmas. And from a political perspective, it could buy them some seasonal goodwill.
Okay, well, we'll get to the Conservatives in a moment. George, I want to talk to you about this because, the NDP message is, look, we forced the government to cave on this, even though it's not everything we wanted when it comes to GST relief. The NDP is now saying we will agree to this one-day pause in the ongoing privilege debate to allow this to get through the House. Is this a good political move for the NDP and for Jagmeet Singh here?
Well, I mean, look, the NDP stood up last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever it was and announced...
This is the NDP commentator here.
...that they wanted to take GST off groceries, off kids' clothes. I mean, actually home heating as well, which the Liberals have neglected to include in this package. And they wanted to make it permanent. The Liberals are just doing a 2-month pause here. So I think that's a bit... a bit unfortunate, because I think that goodwill, people will be also saying, well, what happens when the GST comes back? For the NDP, they asked for it, and it's coming, so it's hard to, you can't look a gift horse in the mouth and say, no, we're not going to take at least this step forward. But at the same time, I think you're going to see the NDP still saying, yes, this was a good step, but we need to see it permanent. We need to actually affect home heating, which are the bills that people are really going to be feeling very soon. So I think...
Well, that's what I mean. If they had focused on just groceries and said, hey, we're going to remove the GST off groceries permanently, something like that, just one area of things, instead of doing this broad blanket of all this whole gift basket for the holidays, you could focus on one narrow area, right? And you could provide
people will
permanent
feel
relief.
it, and businesses are going to be doing better for that time, right? Like anybody who owns a restaurant or like a liquor store or something, they're going to be making more money.
Yeah, but for me, I guess it's just not the taxes that make me not like it's the price on the price tag that makes it so expensive, right? Like that's the problem. It's like that's where the carbon tax is coming in, right? It's the industry taxes, the taxes these companies are paying to transport and create your goods, right? Like if the
carbon tax goes away, though, there is like nobody's going to just remove like those.
No, I understand what you're saying, sudden, right? But I'm just saying at this point, what's the long-term solution, right? Like it's nothing but a Band-Aid. It's nothing but a Band-Aid.
Yeah, no, exactly. Okay. No, that's all I'm trying to say. I completely agree. It's completely a Band-Aid solution. Yeah.
Gents, the BQ will be the official opposition in House of Commons come October. Yeah, at this point with the polls, that's what's happening because they're losing so much support in Quebec, and Quebec's like half the country. So
it's but
yeah, and that's what I mean. If you're already broke, this isn't gonna help. This isn't gonna like do that much for you. This is gonna do more for like the middle class than anything, I think. And those are the people who have some money. They're having to be a lot more responsible than they used to have to be with it. And I think those are the people that this is going to benefit. And that's why a lot of the people on disability, pensions are not going to be very happy with this, because I don't even think that they'll qualify. You have to hit a certain threshold. So you have to I think make a certain amount as well, right? So it's just crazy. Like it's not the sales tax cut at the till will help them, but that's about it, right? If the cost of the goods overall were lower, that would help even more, right? And that's just what I'm trying to say, right? Is that it doesn't matter.
Is it 7%?
It's 5%. 5%. But if you're in provinces like Alberta, that's all you pay is GST, HST at the till, right? So all you pay is 5%.
And if you're going out to eat, I mean, that's a tip, right? Or like a half a tip, I guess nowadays. But
is it?
If you're picking up food, I don't know. I mean, what do you?
Well, you're a family of you're like a whole family, right? So I think it's a bit different. But anyways, let's just push forward with this.
But they still want to stay separated from the Liberals, which is always the game that's a bit complicated.
Right, because we've talked about this before during the confidence in supply agreement when NDP priorities were getting pushed through by the government. It was a question of who's going to get credit for this? Is it going to be the NDP? Is it going to be the government? Do you see a different dynamic now that agreement is gone?
Well, I can definitely see it being tried, right? And they're going to, and I'm sure Cole's going to.
Yeah, they're going to have to also implement this into the tills, right? So they're going to have to go in each tills, provide codes. It's a lot of work for these businesses as well. Smaller businesses, I don't think it'll be a big deal for them because they're like one register. But big corporations, they're going to have fun getting all their tills ready for this.
Going to come up and say the NDP Liberal government.
That hard?
Well, when I was selling agricultural products, I had to type in specific special codes we put into our register to remove the taxes off of it. So we removed
Yeah, but
the
I can't
GST,
imagine it's
HST.
that hard, right?
Well, I don't know how much it is to set it up. It's just a cost. It's just an expense. Like if you're one till, I don't think it's a big
It might
deal.
just be like 5 minutes from one worker, right?
Yeah, for a small business, I don't think it's going to affect them that much. But it's the big corporations that are going to have to probably put a whole plan together to actually roll that out.
Which it never has been, and I wish it could have been an NDP government. You want to see Cole get upset about the spending we do and the programs we didn't implement. But I think that is the dance, right? I mean, we saw one headline that gave all the credit to the Liberals and forgot that Jagmeet called for this, 2 weeks ago. And we saw another headline that said NDP and Liberals as if there was a negotiation, and there was no negotiation. The Liberals apparently basically gave a briefing call yesterday and said, hey, we're going to come through with this. Will you help us pass it? And the NDP said, no negotiations. We're not going to give you anything for this. But if you're going to take GST and make life more affordable for people, of course, we're going to do that. That's our goal.
Okay, and Cole, we did hear the Conservative leader slamming both the Liberals and the NDP on this, calling it a paltry move on affordability. But, we didn't hear a firm answer from Mr. Poilievre on whether his party would vote against it. He said, we want to see more details. So is there a risk if the party votes against this?
Yeah, we'll see if we actually get there. I think that, if I look at the strategy between, the Liberals move on the GST and the NDP moving to support.
Sorry, this is the Conservative commentator, guys. I just want to make sure everyone knows which party which sideline they're on. AR, you'd have to program this. It's a huge impact to costs. Yeah, that's what I was saying. And that's what I think
are those
Kamira
the
was
big
saying too. But it's not. I don't think it's going to be like. I think it's not going to affect ma and pa shop really, because they have one register, and they might even. I've seen some that are still using old registers, and they got a calculator to figure out how much taxes you owe them and
Is
stuff.
this Conservative guy wearing those Liberal glasses right now?
I wouldn't really consider. I consider those like the mid 2010s skater glasses, and that's probably what he was in college in at the time. Those like when it was so funny. I was watching Modern Family, and they're all wearing the glasses and the toque and the button-up shirt and jeans. I'm like, that was totally a style, and it's just like I feel like this is them when they grow up.
Support it. I look at the fact that this is a direct response that on issues of affordability.
Hey, Rob, welcome back. We're just still talking about the GST tax cut and how it's going to affect people, how it's going to affect businesses. Like I was saying, I don't think it's going to affect mom and pop shops to have to roll it out into their registers, and we're talking about stuff like that. Basically, just kind of going through the news cycle about the whole thing, trying to get as much information as we can on the GST cut, what that's going to mean for people. And yeah, it's so far it seems like an empty gesture, band-aid solution, a trick. That's what it's been called at this point by their party leaders. So yeah, we're just kind of getting into it here.
Conservatives are trusted more than any other political party to deliver on issues of affordability. When polled, Canadians also say that this federal government hasn't done enough on affordability. Any measure that brings relief to the cost of living for Canadians is a good thing, but I think in this particular instance, a lot of Canadians are looking at this and assessing the short-term nature of it and saying, all right, what's the nature of the long-term relief I'm going to get here? And looking at, this move from the Liberals as a response to their lack of credibility on affordability issues.
I don't think they're thinking about those things at all. I think the Conservatives got surprised a bit on this announcement, and the measures they're proposing they have no way of implementing anytime soon. And I think it was politically a shrewd move on the part of the Liberals. The other thing that's very interesting in this is because they've addressed food and other issues that impact everybody, it addresses some of the criticism for some of the people who don't have children maybe, or aren't married couples maybe, or aren't seniors. That middle age group that was supportive of Trudeau, that's finding the housing situation very difficult. This is an alleviation on their daily costs as well. So it's an interesting move to, as I said, bring some positive seasonal conversation for them. We'll see what happens down the road, but I think in the Christmas break when people are getting together with families, they'll be like, oh, I got the GST off my Christmas tree, and there'll be parents saying, I didn't have to pay tax on the toys for my kids and on the diapers for them for the holidays.
Yeah, George, what do you think about this in terms of a good short-term political move for the Liberals here?
Well, I mean, look, there's no doubt this is even Susan's admitting this is a political move. Sure. They're in desperate times. They're trying whatever they can, but it is also going to actually make life more affordable for folks, right? I think the short-term nature is a concern, and we're going to want to figure out how we can make that long-term, and you're going to see the NDP calling for that and trying to figure that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you said, it's like, what's going to happen after it lifts, right? After the pause is over, people are going to feel it pretty hard, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's not going to, they're setting themselves up for failure and setting everyone up.
I think
you know what I
that
mean? Like it's
this whole thing where people are always so focused on like the numbers and on their end, right? Like what economists are saying, and it's like all people really care about at the end of the day is the sticker price. Like it's the shock inflation that bugs people, right? When something's all of a sudden they're like, oh my god, it's $6 or $7 for butter, right? Like that's the sort of thing that people care about.
it's
and that's
$10
the sort of
for some brand. For a thing of Lactania butter, it's like $10. It's like $8.99.
Well,
and
that
for
would be
you know, a jug of milk, it's like $6. You know, like you're paying about $4.99 for a loaf of multigrain bread, like fresh baked. Don't get me wrong. So in store baked multigrain bread is like $4.99. That's how much you're paying for a lot of stuff nowadays, which is crazy. Like to think that it's $5 for any loaf of bread ever is crazy. It's not some artisan, aged, fermented sourdough of some sort or something. That's what used to be a $5 loaf of bread. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's crazy what we're just accepting as the standards now. Like you could pay what, like you know, like go get like 6 chicken strips. It's like $10. You know what I mean? Like go out for a meal. It's like I never go out to eat anymore. And then when I do, I don't even want to eat anymore. I'm like, why the hell would I pay these prices?
I'm the same, yeah.
Like it's like $23.99 for a burger. It's like, what the heck is going on? You know what I mean? Like
where are
since
you going
when
that it's $23.99 for a burger?
Oh, just places in areas of stuff.
Oh yeah,
nearby cities. I shouldn't be saying where I'm actually going, Saul.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
yeah,
the one
I just
worried
meant
about
what
people finding
restaurant.
us.
Well, no, I meant the restaurant specifically is what I was asking. But like, I
yeah,
feel
they're
like
not
White
chains.
Spot
But like,
for
if you go to like,
a meal, it's
like I think I went to a Fat Burger and it was like $20. It was like $15.99 for a burger.
Yeah, Fat Burger's
without
really
fries.
expensive though.
And then like, or like anywhere like that, or you know, they're all like, if you go sit at a diner, you used to be able to spend $15. You get like a burger, fries, and a drink. I feel like I remember doing that. I remember doing that a lot. And I remember people at that time saying, oh, you used to be able to do this for $5 or $10. It was like, but now the gap is like not just gone up a third, it's like doubled. You know what I mean? Like compared to like Gen X compared to us, you know what I mean? Like the gap that Gen X saw compared to us, it like doubled or between us and now the new generation.
The COVID inflation's not going to go away either. That's the thing, right? It's like the bread price is not going to go back down. The only thing you can do is you could try to increase wages to meet with the new level of inflation.
Yeah, but you have to stabilize inflation in order to do that, right? And that's the thing.
Yeah, stabilize inflation.
Is
it stabilized a little bit right now?
It's like 2.2% or something right now, but it's still it's not even
ideal, isn't it?
No, that's like your maximum allowance. That's like your word. That's you're not supposed to go over 2%. I think ideal is like 1.5, between
Year
1 and
over
1.5
year,
kind of thing, right? Like you're not supposed to go over 2%. Like that's what's so crazy is like wages were also designed, like the whole step programs with certain companies and big corporations are just designed to counteract inflation, but those can't keep up anymore. And not to mention, it's not even just inflation, right? It's just taxes too. All the production taxes on companies.
I think 2 to 3% is the ideal rate, and then Bank of Canada's target is to keep inflation at 2% with a range of 1 to 3. It says.
Okay.
New year. But I actually agree with Susan. There's no one's gonna be sitting around the Christmas tree being like, oh, I want to pay my GST because this was just a political move. I mean, they're gonna be happy that they got the money in their pocket and they're gonna feel good about that.
I think that the difference between the two, if I compare, the measures that Doug Ford takes compared to Justin Trudeau, here's a premier who's been talking about affordability issues for 6 years compared to a prime minister who's just kind of getting in the conversation now. So we see Doug Ford and the Ontario PCs talk about the $200 rebates, continuing to cut the gas tax into 2025, and therein lies the difference, I think, in their political success.
Okay, we have a few moments left, and I do want to turn to Randy Boissonnault. Of course, he departed cabinet yesterday. We've heard he's going to focus on clearing his name, clearing the allegations that are against him surrounding his business, surrounding his identity. Susan, let me start with you. How has the government handled this situation over the past few days?
Look, Mr. Boissonnault is a really decent human being, and if you'll notice, most of his caucus colleagues are suggesting that about him. I think it's an unfortunate situation that's come about. I think it's an exit that's been could have been managed a bit sooner to take away some of the drip of this story. I think Mr. Boissonnault will go and clear his name, and that door has been left open for him to come back into cabinet. He didn't get unceremoniously tossed from cabinet. The language around the statement was definitely allowed to go and clear the allegations against him. And so I hope he's able to do that. It's an unfortunate situation. The issue around indigeneity is sensitive. I I do think there'll be some clarity over time. Sometimes what people are told at one stage of their life actually ends up being different as more light gets shone on things over time. So it's an unfortunate situation, and I think it will be resolved hopefully soon.
Okay, George, let me turn to you. Do you see a path for Mr. Boissonnault to, I guess, gain his credibility back on this issue, whether or not there's a return to cabinet later on?
Well, I think there are on some issues possibly and maybe even likely. I think around indigeneity, I think it's a big deal. And I think it's, you know, for all of us to sit around, and I'm not going to guess at everyone else's background, but like, as myself, no claim to indigeneity myself, but it's definitely a sensitive issue, and it goes beyond just cultural heritage. I mean, this whole debate ended up turning Indigenous businesses versus other Indigenous businesses, became an attack on some. You know, Pure Spirit, for instance, it came up in committee as attacked as a non-Indigenous business, when in fact their majority owner is an Indigenous person.
Yeah, she was the Liberal commentator. That's why she's trying to carry water for Randy there, because that's not they're not going to just throw him off the ship. They're going to pretend like he's willingly stepping off the ship for graceful reasons, when really they're throwing him off
himself. And so lots of other companies have been brought down by this. So I think that's the problem. So is there a path for Mr. Boissonnault? I don't know. I think on that one issue is a big one for him to step back from. But I think we have to recognize that there are bigger impacts than just the political games in Ottawa.
Okay, Colin, let me give you the last word on this.
Sure. I think we've seen a lot of instances of this, unfortunately, over the last few years. You know, APTN does a lot of good work looking at issues and instances of Indigenous identity fraud. Just last year, 2023, there was an instance in which 2 women from Toronto, you know, pretended to be Inuit women and defrauded numerous organizations for tens of thousands of dollars. So when we're talking about issues like this, it exploits Indigenous people, and you know the nature of it is pretty shameful. And in this instance, you know, regardless of the exact particulars, it doesn't reflect well on Mr. Boissonnault or the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
A holiday break for Canadians, courtesy the federal government. A 2-month suspension of the GST on items like beer, cake, toys, books, hot prepared foods, and a $250 check for lower and middle income Canadians. Like it? Well, it's just temporary and still has legislative hurdles to pass. CTV's Rachel Aiello is here to break it all down for us, especially the perks. Okay, Rachel.
Sandy, the Prime Minister is promising Canadian consumers a temporary tax break on some essentials and common stocking stuffers heading into the holiday season.
Major affordability announcement. Today, Justin Trudeau revealed Canadians will soon be getting some relief at the cash register.
Major affordability announcement. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's just overhyped at this point. Like, it's not that crazy. Like, I guess even for me, I'm like, okay, it's 5%. Like, what is that really going to get us? You know what I mean? I guess that's how I'm seeing it. Maybe I'm just a little bit. Maybe I'm just like, well, we need more help than that, right? In situations. So it's just like, to me, it's frustrating.
And more long-term plan.
It's like this isn't going to do me any good, really. This is like, okay, it's going to do you some good, but like I said, it's like getting a $5 Tim card. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, in terms of like what you make an entire year, how much tax dollars you pay, you know, like that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like, that's what you're basically getting out of the whole thing.
Everyone had to tighten their belts a little bit. And now we're going to be able to give a tax break for all Canadians.
Well, hey, if
For 2 months, starting mid-December.
return, take it.
The federal government is removing the GST and HST where applicable on restaurant meals as well as on dozens of consumer goods. Among the items where these taxes won't be charged are grocery store snacks, beer and wine, children's clothing, video games, puzzles, toys, and Christmas trees.
Video games, really? That's what I mean. It's like, how is this not a bribe? Look at everything on the screen here. Like, what is, you know what I mean? Grocery snacks, chips, beer, clothes, games, toys. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the toys and games make sense as Christmas gifts. I get it.
Yeah.
They're trying to incentivize, I get it, like holiday spirit. I get it. Like, it's like, you know, parties, things like that.
It's a boon. This is a huge part of the year for a lot of those businesses, right? So I think that they're probably more appreciative of this than even the people are, because now there's going to be people who are more willing to go out to eat, more willing to buy more gifts. And they also are getting, I don't know when that money is supposed to go into people's pockets, but they're supposed to get that tax return as well.
I just feel like it's going to piss a lot of people off because they're like, oh, you can do this, but well, you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, I think, like, I understand this is what, like you said, it's what people can hold in their hand and see, right? It's not about what the numbers and statistics say. It's not. because people are people.
Yeah,
We're
that's
not
what I mean, though,
robots.
is that in a way that this is going to be, it'll probably feel good for a couple of months at least. And it might not, I don't know if that feeling is going to go away completely when the tax comes back and everybody's like, oh, wow, now everything's more expensive again. Maybe everybody will be aware of it, or maybe they won't. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say how it'll
Yeah,
play
well,
out.
they're saying all this plus essential items is what they had said. So they said diapers and stuff too. Previous lady had mentioned.
Trudeau also announced plans to send rebate checks to 18.7 million Canadians who earned $150,000 or less last year.
If you haven't filed...
Yeah, so I feel like earned, I don't think that's take home. I think that's pre-tax. Like, there's no way that's take home. That puts you at like the highest tax bracket. Like, that's insane.
A tax return. File your tax return by December 31st. That will make it possible for
See, you have to file your tax return by December 31st to get it.
us to send you that check for $250.
Let's replay that. See, I told you there's going to be a catch.
File your
What
tax
is the
return.
file your tax? When are you allowed to file your taxes? I thought you had to wait for January 1st.
18.7 million Canadians who earned $150,000 or less
I
last
always
year.
wait until,
If
yeah,
you
it's
haven't
like actually
filed a
not
tax return, file your tax return by December 31st. That will make it
It's for people
possible
who
for
haven't done
us
it already.
to send
Oh,
you
okay.
that check for $250.
So they're just trying to bribe people to pay their taxes, basically.
Well,
it is.
The government says the GST holiday will
What if you're protesting it? What if you don't? I heard that's a thing.
cost them
People don't take their
$1.6
tax
billion.
returns? No, they just don't pay their taxes because they're mad at the government. But in Canada, they'll freeze
How
your
would they
bank
do
accounts
that?
over that. Canada, they can audit you and freeze your account over not paying taxes. So
They can do that everywhere, can't they?
I don't know about the States. I think the States, they put you in prison, don't they? But I know Canada, they can actually they'll just take, there's no jail time for it, but they can freeze your bank account and audit you and make your life hell.
And will
Well, hey,
require
man, the taxes pay
legislation.
for the roads, right?
To
You're
pass
driving, you
it,
should
the
be paying
Liberal
taxes.
minority has secured the help of the NDP to break the procedural stalemate.
I hope my tax dollars are actually going to the roads. I guess that's my concern, is that they're not going onto the roads, and that whoever they're hiring to build the roads aren't doing the best job, and the people that are hiring the people to hire to do the job are also not doing the best job because people hiring them are incompetent as well.
I don't know how to fix
Stalemate
that.
in the Commons, but just long enough to get the bill through.
I guess
We
just
want to
get rid
see
of
this
Doug-
relief
or, Justin
is
Trudeau.
done as quickly as possible. So we're prepared to pause the privilege motion that's being debated in the House for one day.
The Conservatives were quick to characterize the pocketbook pledge as inflationary, but aren't saying if they'll support it.
And today, what we have is a 2-month temporary tax trick.
Cost of living is still a top issue for voters, and pollsters say there could be some political gain here for the Liberals. But because it's time limited, there's also a risk.
I think the pressure will be on them to probably keep this in place, especially if talk of the town here in Ottawa is that we're going to be in an election in the spring.
The consumer tax break is slated to stay in place until mid-February.
Yeah, and with the Liberals releasing all the ads, I think they know it's going to be a springtime election as well. I think everyone's on that page. They're just not talking about it yet.
And the workers' rebate is set to roll out in April, right around the time of the next carbon tax increase. Sandy?
All right, Rachel, thank you. And this...
That's what I mean, right? Is like it's coming at the right at the next step. It's like this just people are going to be so mad, and I don't even think that they're going to be in power anymore by the time that actually all happens. And by the time these they could be removed from office before this even happens, right?
So, how much will consumers actually save with this tax break? We asked CTV's Andrew Johnson to meet up with a couple of random shoppers. Okay, Andrew, it's not exactly scientific, more like a snapshot of potential savings. What did you learn?
Sandy, the potential GST holiday on a bunch of different food is being embraced with open arms here in the grocery store parking lot. But people are
He's in Vancouver, by the way, guys.
also wondering how much of a difference is it?
South Surrey.
Yeah, I feel like I've been at that superstore before at some point.
I have been to this one.
really going to make?
Loading up the trunk outside Superstore, saving more starting in December, sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that's the pasta sauce I was talking about.
Trunk
If you go
outside
to the grocery
Superstore,
store,
saving
the
more
Classico,
starting in December.
That pasta sauce, they literally lowered the jars by like 10%, and the price didn't budge.
I noticed
Sounds
that, yeah.
pretty
The
good.
Alfredo
I think it's great.
specifically is way smaller now.
And it
Well, it's probably because that's the bigger seller, and the old pack size has to rotate out. They have to sell the old product before they bring in the new size.
Yeah, maybe.
helps families with kids with all the baby stuff.
It will be helpful.
chips, cheese puffs, popcorn.
Chips. I got 2 bags of chips because
Okay.
they're on sale.
Okay, no tax on those chips then.
Miss Vicky's are expensive, I gotta say. Like, and I bought one of these sausages things, and it was like $15 or $15 or $16. I was like, what the hell? When did that happen? I remember buying the same pack of sausages for like $8.99. You know what I mean? Like, and this bag of chips, I remember getting 2 for $5. It's 2 for $9 now when it's a good deal. Autumn, the roads in BC are so bad you can get pulled over for drunk driving just trying to miss the potholes. That's a good joke.
In December.
Many of the new items that could become tax-free next month are staples of the holiday season. Comfort food and snacks. But we didn't find a lot of that kind of stuff in today's carts.
Cakes, pies, donuts, brownies, candy, chocolate, sweets, chips, popcorn. You don't have a lot of that stuff in here, do you?
Staples such as fresh meat, milk, and produce are already not taxed in Canada. Pre-made salads and platters will now also be included. How much more you'll save will depend greatly on what's left on your list.
Now these days everything is so expensive. Anything you can save anywhere is better.
This is nothing at all, you know. So I'm sorry, but it's ridiculous.
The takeaway from
I'm on
shoppers
that guy's
today.
page. I'm on that guy's page.
Well, it's nice to see anything in the way of relief, but unless you're loading up your cart with a lot of processed or junk food, it doesn't seem like you'll be saving much. Sandy.
Okay.
This is the question I have for people. Trudeau and the NDP Liberals have increased government spending by 85% in a decade. Are you getting 85% better federal government services?
Yeah, that's a question that I think people can answer.
But just because something costs more
doesn't mean
that it's better.
Yeah.
You know, it's like saying, well, I went to the best restaurant in the Lower Mainland yesterday. Oh yeah, what was so great about it? Well, they charged me $1,000. It must be good because it was really expensive. Well, what about the ambiance? It was terrible. What about
and that's true. And so you've brought this point up before when we're arguing about stuff, because you're saying just because they put more money towards an issue doesn't mean that they're trying to fix it, right? Doesn't mean that it's going to be effective. So like, I completely get what you mean. Let them eat chips. Yeah, take your junk food. Like, I get what it means. They're trying to incentivize partying and gift giving, right? The holiday
economy.
spirits.
It's honestly, it kind of doubles as an economy stimulus package.
But anyways, let's see what actually happens with it.
Food. It was awful. The service, we waited for hours, but it must be the best because we spent the most on it. That's the government mentality. We're judging success by how expensive things could be. Government should be cheaper than ever. With new technology, we should be able to deliver more and better services at a lower cost. But if you look at all the things government does, they're becoming more and more expensive to deliver worse and worse results. Look at housing.
And this is what I'm kind of saying, right? Is like, it depends on who's managing everything, right? And whether or not he could do it better, he's going to have to step up to the plate and show us he can do it better before I firmly believe it with my whole heart. You know, I definitely agree.
Bar is not very high. So.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, it's like, you know, it's there. You could step over that bar. You don't even have to like work high to climb over it. It's just like on the ground and Trudeau's underneath it. But yeah, it's basically just this whole thing is a good point. Is all I'm trying to say.
Trudeau spent $80 billion on affordable housing. And what's the result? Housing costs have actually doubled. You know, so just because the government is spending billions of dollars on a problem doesn't mean that it's going to get any better. In fact, the more government gets involved in our lives, the worse our lives become. We need less government and more freedom.
Yeah, I don't know what show that was for sure, but that was it was on Pierre Poilievre's YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. I do have a little bit of a problem with the way he kind of frames stuff sometimes. I feel like he's like, it's not like we can't ever have any government regulations or intervention. It's just you have to be deft with it. Like you have to be careful.
Well, that's what I mean, right? Is because it's
the
so
whole
out
metaphor
of
you're
control.
always using, right? The electricity and the water. Like
Yeah,
you gotta
but there's a
control it,
difference
right?
between having a campfire and your house is on fire. You know what I mean? I guess that's kind of the difference with it. It's like, it's not like this is a campfire situation. Like your house is on fire. And this is why. Yeah. So it's easy. You don't have to be as specific. Like you said, that bar is low, right? It's not hard just to, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but like to, you know, challenge. I don't know the word I'm looking for here, but like
you're having a me moment. You're freezing in your room.
I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but I can't.
Yeah,
but like, you know, like I understand what you mean, but it's because it's an intense situation. I think it's acceptable. That's what I'm trying to say.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today, as well as reaction to the changing of his tune on affordability. Through the sky-high inflation period that Canada saw post-pandemic, and even as it waned, Trudeau opted for targeted income-tested relief, insisting wider relief would drive up inflation. But now he plans to send $250 checks to almost 19 million Canadians and a GST holiday on many holiday-themed items to everyone. What changed and what are the politics behind the decision? Let's bring in the front bench. Former New Brunswick Premier Brian Gallant is here. He's the CEO of Space Canada. Former Alberta MLA and Cabinet Minister Gary Mar is with us. He's the president and CEO of the Canada West Foundation, and former Manitoba Premier and Canadian Ambassador to the U.S. Gary Dewar is with us this evening. He's now a senior business advisor at Dentons. Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday. Brian, I'll start with you. What's your best guess as to the political impetus behind this?
Start with the only one that's not named Gary. So look, I think the very clear answer to your question would be, of course, affordability is top of mind of Canadians and is at the heart, most likely at the heart of the difficulties of the Liberals, politically speaking, over the last few months, maybe even over the last year. So that's the very direct answer to your question. Now, the policy itself. Look, it's a short-term measure. I mean, that's not very insightful because it's obviously only for a few months. But it comes at a time, obviously, as we all know, people are going to be spending quite a bit. It's sort of the time of year that people are looking to come together, have large gatherings, have dinners together, have exchange presents, all of that good stuff, and try to take some of the opportunities when there are sales on as well. So all the retail are ready for spending to happen. So it is a time when people feel the crunch and maybe they're in a good mood because it's sort of the holidays on the verge. But then usually in January, people feel not as good as they look at their bills and maybe their credit card bills and sort of the reality of the monthly bills kind of sets in. So it makes sense from that point of view to maybe help a little bit over the next little while. And of course, it's a message that goes to the heart of what's top of mind of Canadians right now, and probably one of the things that have been an irritation for Canadians vis-a-vis the Liberals, but it's a very short-term measure. So in the context that maybe there's an election looming fairly soon, then maybe it has a bit of a political benefit, but we can't stress enough how short-term this action will be.
Yeah.
I think maybe the question more bluntly, Gary Dewar, I'll say, is this something that will land with voters, something that will resonate with them and help convince them that, unlike what public opinion polling shows us, the Liberals do care about the affordability challenges they face? Or will they feel like the Liberals are trying to buy their vote?
Well, you always risk people perceiving it as a cynical move. Having said that, it is a tough time of year for a lot of people. This will help some people make ends meet, allow some people to buy a gift that they were worried about being able to purchase in the holiday season. And so obviously the public will like it, but they're not fooled by the motive of bringing it in at this time. It's interesting as well that it's going to expire on February 15th. I guess we have to go out for a romantic meal on Valentine's Day on the 4th to get that GST reduction for and I'm glad beer's coming.
Squeeze in another holiday there, yeah.
I'm going to declare a conflict of interest on the beer. But I would, going into the next election, unless it's in January, you can't even mail-in ballot if it is, having a permanent tax reduction on the carbon tax and having a permanent reduction in GST on housing is a much more salient issue for their competitors. And so permanent tax reductions are more popular with the public because they're making decisions on their budgets, yes, day to day, but also week to week, month to month, and year to year. So some people will find this helpful, but on the politics of it, I think that I'd rather have a permanent policy in place in Parliament than a short term.
Gary, what's your sense?
It's a rough Band-Aid, right? That's all it is. And it's not going to do you much unless you're buying certain items too, is what they're saying.
Of whether or not, the Liberals will essentially be convincing in a political sense and accomplish what they want this to accomplish for them.
I don't think it's really going to help them
I don't think it's going to help them that much. I mean, it reminds me of, these two programs are going to cost $6 billion. That's all out of borrowed money. And I don't think that this is going to help them. What it looks like to me is it's like putting, two Christmas ornaments on a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. It's just not going to have the kind.
It's like putting two ornaments on a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. It's good.
Of resonance that Gary Dewar talked about with actually having a plan. If you, for example, as Gary said, put in a permanent GST exemption for building new houses, that is actually something that is policy. And when you look at something that is in measure going to end in just a few months, as Brian said, it's going to help some people in the short term, but I don't think anybody's going to be fooled that into thinking that this is anything but an election cynical effort to win votes over. I mean, this would be like, buying Christmas presents for your kids and then sending them the credit card bill with interest, sometime in the future. That's what this program looks like to me, both the GST holiday as well as the $250 checks. I know some people will say, well, Ralph Klein did this with his Ralph Bucks. You were in Alberta at that time, Vashi, but the difference is this, is that Ralph Klein was running a surplus. He actually was giving back money to Albertans that was, belonged to Albertans. He didn't borrow money in order to fund the programs, and that's why I think people will be cynical about what the purpose of these two programs are going to be.
Yeah, we don't even have to go back as far as Ralph Bucks, Brian. A few weeks ago, Premier Doug Ford in Ontario was also cutting checks for everyone. This one, not, I guess you can call this means tested, but theirs was not means tested. I guess though, even though they too took in extra revenue and decided to disperse it back, there's still like a lot of people, I think, and I certainly heard from them on my radio show today, who say, like $3 billion, $6 billion, I can't get into a family doctor. There's no daycare spaces for me. Like, there are other things that might be, have value in placing that money if you've got to put it somewhere. I think that's a fair criticism of both the Prime Minister and the Premiers in this case. But I also think that the Liberals here are trying to do something different. They have to be fair to them, introduced more permanent tax reductions to incentivize the supply side of housing. But on this, I think they're trying to be populist. They're trying to do something that switches something for them because nothing else has worked. Do you think it will?
Yeah, it's a loaded question. So look, I feel taking from both Garys here, I think that all of it is sort of true in the sense that people are going to appreciate receiving a check, those that will receive it. People will appreciate the fact.
Sorry, but Rob, trying to get this government out is like continually flushing a turd that won't go down. So it's a funny analogy there. Just like, you ever have one of those times you get frustrated trying to do that,
that at a time when they do spend more money, it's going to be a little less expensive. So I think people appreciate that, but I think we can't ignore the idea that it's short term. So on the politics of it, how long does a short-term measure like this kind of get you sort of any credit politically or sort of appease those that might be upset or feeling the pinch? Not very long. And I think the context that we find ourselves in, obviously the election is going to be in less than a year, could be in months. So maybe the thinking is, look, the election might be fairly soon, so if people are in a better mood for a few months, that's helpful. Or it's at least a sort of a talking point where they can say there is affordability challenges and we've tried some programs and this was one of them. So mild benefits there, but I don't foresee in 6 months many people saying, I feel a lot better about my affordability challenges because there was that holiday during the holidays on GST, and we had received a check. The check will help, but the way in which that will help will not last beyond much longer than a few months. So certainly, again, short term,
Trump
and I don't
handed
think
out
the
checks
political,
like this, and he didn't
the
get
political
any
benefit lasts very long.
from it, I don't think.
Unless maybe there's an election happening.
Neither did Biden, really, to be fair.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau
Yeah, I think he
announcing
did a cash handout too, didn't he?
Yeah,
No,
the
wait,
stimulus
maybe-
checks.
no,
That was Biden, wasn't it? The stimulus checks?
No, the stimulus checks were Trump.
Oh. Well, did they get paid out after Biden took office? I swear Biden was in office when those rolled out.
I thought Biden did the child tax benefit or the extension of the child tax benefit or something.
Yeah. No, it's funny you say that, Rob, because to me, it's like Canadian news is boring, right? And it's all about trying to make this as entertaining as possible. For me, that's why I like commentate on it and like make fun of the people I'm watching, because it makes it more engaging to me. But also these people play an important role in our society, in our government, right? So it's good to know what they're up to. They're all public servants, right? Even the journalists here are serving the public in a way as well. So I think it's good to at least see what they're saying. You don't have to agree with everything they're saying, and you just got to separate the fact from the opinion, right?
a 2-month GST holiday on a suite of holiday-themed items and $250 checks for all working Canadians who made less than $150,000 in 2023. He will, however, need opposition support to pass the plan. Will he get it? With us now to talk about that, conservative ethics critic Michael Barrett.
Oh, they got Michael Barrett on here.
Deputy Finance critic Taylor Backrack. Hi to both of you.
So this is the one NDP MP. I actually think he's together. I don't agree with his ideology, but he's pretty good in committee meetings. He doesn't seem like crazy. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't seem like some of the NDP just seem like greasy, washed up lawyers, and then he doesn't come off that way. He's from northern BC as well, though.
Thank you very much for making the time. Mr. Barrett, the first question is a simple one. Will your party support it?
Well, we haven't seen the legislation yet. We had an announcement by the Prime Minister today. Those measures appear to be a temporary tax trick. We know that in the new year they are raising the price. They're raising the tax on alcohol, as they do every year. We know that they're going to raise the carbon tax again in the new year with their plans to quadruple it. That'll raise the price of food for Canadians, the price to put gas in their cars and to heat their homes. So those things we know based on legislation that the Liberals and the NDP have supported in the House of Commons. We haven't seen legislation on this. So as soon as they introduce it, we'll take it to caucus, and as a group of common sense Conservatives, we'll review it.
Let me reframe the question then. In principle, do the Conservatives support a 2-month holiday on GST for the items that the Prime Minister's office released today?
What we've committed to do is to permanently remove the carbon tax for everyone and to take the GST off homes under $1 million to save Canadians tens of thousands of dollars. So those are
does that mean that you
permanent.
don't support this?
Isn't he?
Those are permanent.
Michael Barrett and Taylor Mayback, both of them are. Taylor.
Yeah. So I'm just saying it's surprising.
Michael Barrett.
He's here.
Yeah, dude. He's like he was one of the first Conservatives to be on X all the time and stuff.
I thought they were making he had a ban on CTV. I guess he lifted it, or
no. Sheer was on yesterday too. in my afternoon stream, they had Sheer.
Oh, okay, so yeah,
and they're back to these good panels. They had Gerritsen, Sheer, and Julian, Peter Julian from the NDP, all on there. Like, it was a great panel.
That's why I was bummed out about the Pierre thing, where he was saying he wasn't going to allow his MPs to go back onto CTV. He was like,
well, they apologized and then they let him go back on. It's just a matter of, I don't know what the whole situation is there, but.
Tax cuts for all Canadians. We haven't proposed any temporary tax cuts for just some people.
Do I interpret from that you will not support in principle something like this? And I have to challenge you on that, because the framing that your party, has put forward very consistently around getting rid of the carbon tax is one around affordability, right? Life is not affordable for Canadians. We hear that from your leader all the time. Therefore, we want to bring in a tax cut to make things more affordable. I understand your desire to see the carbon tax cut. The government has said that they're not going to do that. They are offering other relief when it comes to affordability. How can you say to Canadians you're going to put politics above that?
Well, it's simply not putting politics above it. We have to see the legislation that the government is going to propose. They made an announcement today. This comes on the heels.
It's a detailed announcement, with all due respect, though. It's not like it's just like, oh, some things might get GST. They put a list out there.
Yes, we know that they plan to take the tax off Christmas trees that you buy after December 14th. This is after 9 years where in this country, food price inflation is 39% or 36% higher.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. That's their audio, by the way, guys. He's like hitting his mic or something.
Than our neighbors to the south in the United States. We know that 25% of Canadians are using food banks, which is certainly much higher than the 6% and change unemployment rate in this country. We know that hundreds of thousands of kids are going to school hungry because of the effect of the carbon tax raising the price on food in this country. So this is what...
I'm not disagreeing with the fact you're putting on the table of the way people are suffering.
I'm asking how you can look at those people suffering and say, because you'd rather see a carbon tax cut, you're not going to support something that the government is proposing that would offer a different kind of relief.
But don't act like it's going to end people's suffering. It's not going to end their suffering. That's what that's making me so mad. It's like, it's not even some lubricant. It's just like a little loogie on it. You know what I mean? It's not even like greasing it up at all.
Well,
it's
hey,
just
man,
like,
sometimes a loogie is all you need.
It's not. Ugh, why'd you have to add to it? I regretted saying it, and then you added to it. I'm just saying though, it's like, what is this? Like, what is this? Like, it's not, you're not ending suffering by providing this. You know what I mean? That's what makes me so frustrated. She just said that. Listen what she just said.
Ending suffering.
Something that
okay, listen.
Suffering, as you're putting on the table of the way people are suffering. I'm asking how you can look at those people suffering and say, because you'd rather see a carbon tax cut, you're not going to support something that the government is proposing that would offer a different kind of relief.
We can offer permanent relief today to Canadians by taking the carbon tax off absolutely everything.
Yeah, but she says it in a way like that relief is going to end the suffering. It's not. That relief is not going to do anything.
I think you're adding your own interpretation onto that.
And the $250 is coming after Christmas, by the way. The $250
provide relief. I mean, if someone's hungry and you give them a meal, it's
a little hawk too.
Well, I need to have a permanent. I need a permanent solution of like I need food all the time. Otherwise, I'm not going to take this one meal unless you can guarantee me meals for life. You know, it's like, that's silly. It does help.
Well, it's like if you're starving, here's one fish. It's like, okay,
a little hawk too.
Why not give me a fishing rod, or, you know, stop killing all the fish in the water so I can't have any. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean. It's just like, yeah.
Is a sleight of hand by Justin Trudeau to distract Canadians from the real consequences of his inflationary spending and, frankly, the economic vandalism that he's perpetrated.
I want to bring in Mr. Bachrach, and I have to ask you quite bluntly, why is your party supporting the Liberals on this when your leader, Mr. Singh, was explicit that it did not go nearly as far as you would like to see it go? You wanted it to cover more stuff and you wanted it to be permanent. Why do you continue to support the Prime Minister and his party when you say this falls so short?
Well, thanks, Vashi. First of all, like, we are hearing from Canadians, there's a broad
because they care about the issue
Canadian
and they're
public
okay
that's
with
struggling.
anything.
Okay, well, stop talking over him because I want to hear him talk. But yeah, no, what I mean by he's not a Jagmeet Singh, this guy, as much from what I've seen of him.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Some people are saying I'll change my tune. So,
Like, we are hearing from Canadians, there's a broad swath of the Canadian public that's struggling to make ends meet. And last week we were up calling, demanding that the government take the GST off a whole host of essentials, including home heating, kids' clothes, phone and internet bills. It appears the Prime Minister has caved to that demand and put forward, in classic Liberal fashion, put forward a lesser offer to Canadians. But at the same time, what they've put forward will help people. It's going to put money in their pockets and it's going to reduce the cost of some essentials for a period of time. We would make it permanent. We would do more. We would go further. But our commitment, when we ended the agreement, was to take everything that the government brings forward in the House on a case-by-case basis, look at the merits, and vote in the best interest of Canadians. So we're coming into the Christmas season. Families are going to be stretched. Here's something that's going to give them some help. I think it would be irresponsible not to support that and get them the help that they need.
Like, regardless if you agree with him, he's well-spoken. And that's what I was trying to say about him, is that he has a way of getting his point across that it's weird to see him in the NDP. You're like, why are you in the NDP? Like, why are you in another party? He's like more serious, you know, like it's just, he's seems more together than most of the NDP is all my point was.
But aren't you just also sending the message to Canadians that if the Liberals do a tiny bit of what the NDP likes, then you're willing to keep them in power? And isn't that a difficult message for Canadians to reconcile with?
This isn't about sending messages. It's not about the kind of political games that Michael was talking about. This is about getting help to Canadians. It's that simple. So people are watching this. They're looking at Christmas coming up. They're looking at their paychecks. And
see, that's smart, because that's what the NDP used to be about, wasn't it? It's like it's not about, oh, you know what, Brenda, we're just gonna enjoy. We'll give them the credit where it's due here, okay? I just think the way he's selling it is like, look, these guys are just playing political stunts. They're all corrupted by corporate interests. We're the NDP. We're here for you, right? That's what they used to be. Now what they've become is just the weird communist party. So it's nice to see some NDPers who aren't in that camp.
cost of things in the store, and they're stressed. This is what they're telling me. They're like, we're worried. We're not going to be able to make ends meet. We're not going to be able to put presents under the tree. We're not going to be able to pay our bills. This is an incredibly stressful time of year for people. And so if the government is willing to put something on the table that lowers people's bills, that gives them some of that relief at such a critical time of year, how can we say no to that?
Because today, actually, in a way, Mr. Singh did. He said, when I'm prime minister, I will make it permanent.
Sure,
absolutely. Yeah, he said, when I'm prime minister. It's like, means never. Like, you know, like, when are you ever going to be prime minister, Jagmeet?
Be prime minister if your party was willing to force an election, but you're unwilling to because you don't think he's going to be prime minister, I think.
Coming into Christmas, I think.
Let's just call it a vote on it.
I think the question, whether Canadians want an election at Christmas or they want $250 and a cut to the GST on things like kids' clothes.
Do you really think they're willing to trade the opportunity to get rid of a prime minister that your leader says is a total failure for $250?
There's absolutely going to be an election, and Canadians are going to have it.
That was so well put.
Chance
to trade the opportunity to get rid of a prime minister that your leader says is a total failure for $250?
There's absolutely going to be an election, and Canadians are going to have a chance to voice their opinion at the polls. But listen, we're dealing with a very immediate and very real crisis of affordability for families across the country. And so our commitment that we made was that we would look at everything that the government brings forward on a case-by-case basis, and we would vote in the best interests of Canadians. Now, our leader has been very clear that an NDP government would do much more. In fact,
sorry, I heard
the proposal
you cackling.
Yeah, so basically,
I didn't hear what he said.
I'm going to replay this.
That has been brings him to vote
trade the opportunity
on things like kids' clothes.
Do you really think they're willing to trade the opportunity to get rid of a prime minister that your leader says is a total failure for $250?
There's absolutely going to be an election, and Canadians are going to have a chance to voice their opinion at the polls. But listen, we're dealing with a very immediate and very real crisis of affordability for families across the country. And so our commitment that we made was that we would look at everything that the government brings forward on a case-by-case basis, and we would vote in the best interests of Canadians. Now, our leader has been very clear that an NDP government would do much more. In fact, the proposal...
But you're okay with one doing less now?
The demands that we put forward last week and continued this week went further. This is a permanent cut to the GST on essentials. The GST was never meant to be charged on essentials in the first place. So the fact that there are still kids' clothes and food products that are having GST charged on them, I think doesn't make sense to a lot of people. So we're going to make it permanent. We're going to do everything we can to get people help in the short term.
I've got a very brief sort of concluding question for both of you, and I'm not going to get down in the weeds when it comes to procedure, but our viewers now, we did a debate last night with MPs, they're familiar that the House is kind of in this state of paralysis, which means that legislation can't be introduced in the regular way. Are the Conservatives willing to allow for the possibility of this legislation being introduced? I know you're saying you're waiting until you see it to decide on it. Are you willing to do, I don't know what the rule ends up being, but what is necessary in order for that legislation to be tabled, or do you plan to block it from happening?
The House of Commons is paralyzed by the failure of the Liberals to do what they were legally ordered to do, and that's turn over documents to the law clerk to go to the RCMP in a matter that deals with a $400 million scandal. So the government can end that today. So it's the government. It's Justin Trudeau's
believe
Liberals.
me, I asked Mark Gerritsen about that for 10 minutes last night. I'm trying to figure out for Canadians who might be watching tonight thinking, am I going to get this check? Am I going to get this break over Christmas? If the Conservatives will stand in the way, if there is a mechanism for you to do so, or whether you would allow that to happen.
The government is going to, the Liberals are going to need to look to see if the coalition agreement with the NDP is getting scotch taped back together, then they can continue to do what they have been doing and creating the conditions that have caused us to have this cost of living crisis that Canadians are facing. But in the meantime, Conservatives are determined that the House of Commons must resolve this issue. And
oh my God, his mic sounds like an electric fence.
It can only be resolved in our view by the government turning over the documents.
And that's why I asked those questions, but I have to point out that that's not an answer about what the Conservatives would do. Final question to you from Mr. Bachrach. The NDP today said this kind of hard thing to understand, like we're not going to support the forcing of closure to end that part of the debate, but we will introduce a motion that allows for this to all happen in one day. Do you have any sort of expert opinion that that's actually going to work, like that is possible and going to work?
Sure. We're told that it's possible. That's what we're going to try to do. We very much want to get to the bottom of the question Michael was referring to when it comes to the SDTC documents. We're not going to let the Liberal government off the hook when it comes to their scandals. At the same time, we have a responsibility to get this thing done before Christmas. And we're going to use House procedure. We're going to do everything that we can to temporarily pause the filibuster and the ongoing obstruction of the House related to the documents in order to get this done in one day so that Canadians can get financial relief in the lead up to Christmas. And then we're going to go back to compelling the Liberals to produce the documents.
If you can't, though, are you willing to join forces with the Liberals to force closure? Like, you seem to be willing to join forces.
At this point, we're going to do everything we can to use procedure to create a temporary pause and enough space for us to get the legislation passed so that Canadians can have financial relief in the lead up to Christmas. I think that's our responsibility. We're going to do our best.
Okay. Both of you didn't really specifically answer the last question, but I will leave it on that note. I appreciate you making the time for the discussion. Thank you to Michael Barrett and Taylor.
I don't understand why they have such a hard time with this question. Like, it's honestly Singh's such a bad leader for these guys, because they should be able to just say, like, hey, like, you know, we would like to do more, but at least Trudeau's offering something, right? Like, that's how they should answer that question. It shouldn't be this like, oh, like, like we're gonna hold them accountable, and like, it's like, I just, it's so stupid, because like everybody knows anybody who just pays attention knows that they're supporting them. So all of this, like, it just comes off so fake for them to be like scolding Trudeau while also helping him. They should just say, yeah, like, it's not ideal, but he's our preferred candidate. We're not going to vote him out because we don't want the Conservatives in here, because we're not going to be able to get anything done with them, right? At least the Liberals are willing to work with us. That's all they should say. That's all they need to say. And it comes off so much better than this stupid stuff.
Yeah. I think I was gonna play this originally, but we're running shorter on time, so I'm just gonna skip past this clip to the last clip here.
Joining us now with his reaction
from this morning, Pierre Poilievre again talking more about it.
Is Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Mr. Poilievre, thank you for joining us here on CP24. It's good to sit down with you.
Good to be with you.
My first question for you: will you be voting against this?
Well, we're going to read over the bill when it comes forward. What we know so far is that it's a tiny 2-month tax trick to distract from Trudeau's plan to quadruple the carbon tax on heat and housing, food and fuel. That will cost thousands of dollars to every single family and will be a permanent tax hike if he's reelected. So a 2-month temporary tax trick will not compensate for a 61 cent a liter carbon tax. It's interesting, this whole gimmick comes to an end in February. What happens in April? Well, Trudeau's carbon tax goes up another 20%, and that will raise the cost of gas, heat, and then indirectly everything that comes in a truck. If you got it, a truck brought it. And when you jack up the tax on the fuel those truckers put in their vehicles, you jack up food, heat, clothing, everything you buy. So my plan is, let's axe the carbon tax permanently to bring home affordable prices for Canadians.
Just to be clear here, will you vote against the measure, though, if it's brought in the House of Commons? Is that a yes or a no?
We'll decide. Our caucus meets next Wednesday, and we'll pick up the piece of legislation, read it over, and decide what's best for Canadians. We know that we have a better plan, which is to axe the carbon tax. Also, take GST off new homes under $1 million permanently. Save you 50 grand on a new home. We're going to push the provinces to do that as well. Take the PST, or the provincial sales tax. That would save over $100,000 on a new home. That's the kind of Conservative tax cut that will be permanent when I'm Prime Minister.
You've just told me all the ways that you support giving Canadians a tax break and making life more affordable. That's what you say you're all about. You're all about axing the carbon tax. So why won't you say whether you support this tax break for Canadians?
Well, because I haven't read the bill yet. So you had to know. What you've read is a press release, and I don't vote for press releases. I don't vote for Justin Trudeau's.
You see what I mean? How he just talks and carries himself. It's just like,
I know, but it's no one's asking if you're going to vote for the guy, right? He's not answering the question. He's dodging it
very slickly, though.
And what we know
is
that
he's more slick than the other guy for sure.
It's like Neo dodging the bullets, dude. That's what this is right now.
You can't believe anything Trudeau says about taxes. Remember, he said you'd be better off with the carbon tax, and then his parliamentary budget officer came out and said that every single middle-class family will pay more in the tax than they get back in rebates. Remember, he said he'd help the middle class, and now middle-class people are lined up at food banks and housing costs have doubled. So it's not enough for me to believe what he says. I have to know what's in the actual bill. And when I do, I'll make a decision and do the right thing.
I wonder what message you're sending to Canadians, Mr. Poilievre, when you say you're all about axing the tax, you're all about bringing taxes down, making life more affordable, and in the same breath you say you're not sure you're going to support a tax break for Canadians at a time when they're struggling so badly.
Why are they struggling so badly? It's been 9 years that Trudeau's promised to make them better off. And here we are. You're right. They are struggling so badly. And I think your own words are a condemnation of his track record.
Let me answer your
with
question
food
with
prices.
another question.
No, but I'm just saying he's slick. Like, he is slick at it. And he hasn't read the bill yet because who says the bill's even been presented to him properly and adequately
Yeah,
yet?
I know, but they're saying as presented, as it's been, they have a list of the things that they're going to remove the taxes from. It's not super vague, right? Like, he should just answer the question. Just say, yeah, as long as it looks exactly like they're telling it, I don't have a problem with it. That's all he should say. Because he's not going to be able to vote against it anyways.
How boring would politics be if that's what they did? Like, this guy's a good guy.
I love it.
Yeah, Steve's awesome. All right, guys, we're done. Good day.
Yeah,
Like,
how,
you know, it's like,
how boring would it be if they were just honest and answered the questions? You know?
well, it's
It would be
human
less
nature.
interesting. It
It's
would be that.
unfortunate because it's human nature, and optics are carefully managed in these situations, right? And that's part of the problem.
Yeah, for sure.
Why you don't have the genuinity, the genuine, the real, I don't know, fucking real stuff.
Is rising 37% faster in Canada than they have in the United States, just as the carbon tax came in. Housing costs doubled. Here we are in Toronto, where you have to earn well over $200,000 to afford a home. That was never the case before Justin Trudeau ran money printing and immigration out of control.
Yep.
Okay, so Luca, she asked, will you support this?
I'm gonna run to the washroom quickly.
Considering everybody's having an affordability crisis. And he said, why do we have an affordability crisis, right? He didn't actually answer the question. He just said, well, Justin Trudeau is to blame for all of this, so I don't trust him, and like, we'll see, right? Which means, I mean, essentially they're saying no, I think. I don't think they would vote for anything that Trudeau tables at this point. He's being responsible to wait to see what's in the bill. Sure. I mean, I guess just the question is as presented, right? And he can frame it like that. He can just say, yeah, as long as I'm going to read the bill before I vote on it for sure. But I mean, the way it sounds right now, sure, whatever. I know people are hurting because of Trudeau. So yeah, I will help them out as long as he's in there, right? Like, I'll do everything I can. Said I can't agree to something I haven't seen. Based on what paperwork, Saul, pretty clear. Didn't they provide a list of the things that they're removing the tax from? He said he's going to take a look at it and make the call after. Yeah, that's fine, but he should, like, he's not answering the question, right? It's like a very vague. I don't think he is going to vote for this bill. I could be wrong. I'd be really surprised if he did. What part of that did you miss? I don't know. Like, can you explain? He's going to look at it and make the call after. Yeah, I know. I just don't think that's a very good answer, because they're asking him, as the bill is presented right now, will you support it? They're not saying, oh, have you read the bill yet? Have you made a decision before you read the bill whether you're going to support it? I don't know.
But he takes control of the situation very well. And
Yeah,
that's
I
what I'm trying to
agree.
say. He runs the
His
room.
rhetoric is.
That was my point,
like,
right?
Very, very good rhetoric. Yeah. No,
Well, it's not even rhetoric. It's good policy.
I always
he's got good
I always
practice.
compliment him on his rhetoric. I think his rhetoric is his strongest point. And he's really, really good at interviews, at not so, I don't know about with the press as much, but on one-on-one interviews, yeah, he kills it. He's good.
Control before he built up all these bureaucracies that block home building. Clearly, Canadians are struggling. Justin Trudeau
he doesn't have to. Okay, sorry. Greg, I'm not saying he should commit to it before he's read it. I just said, as long as there's nothing sneaky in it, yeah, sure, we'll support it. But I have to read the bill first before saying for sure. That's what he could say. But instead, he doesn't really want to talk about whether or not he's going to support it, because he probably won't. He doesn't need to. It's going to pass with the NDP, right? So he doesn't really need to make a commitment either way. And he'd rather turn the whole conversation around and point it at Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, and he's good at it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah,
like,
no, I agree.
Like,
That's what I'm saying.
He's playing chess, right? And that's why I think the whole joke, Trudeau's playing checkers, he's playing chess, right? And it's like, that's where definitely I see The thing is, though, like my whole point is that none of them have that capability. They don't have the ability to run the room as effectively, from what I can see anymore, compared to Polyev.
Yeah,
Like,
the
'cause he's
only
on
one
top.
I've seen who can handle the press as well as Pierre does is Wob Canoe. And I mean, maybe in a bigger spotlight, he wouldn't be able to do it as well. But I feel like he's got a really good way of answering these questions. At least it satisfies me, right? Just like the idea that I'm pushing for my agenda and I'll work with whoever I have to get that done, right? And I think that resonates. Like that makes me feel good. That makes me feel like you're not just playing politics. You're trying to get stuff done, right?
Problem. He's not the solution. What we need is a common sense plan for permanent tax cuts. Axe the carbon tax, axe the GST on new homes, and slash the bureaucracy and waste to bring down deficits, interest rates, and inflation.
Okay, I'm going to move on now. I want to take a look at some international issues. You have vowed to fight Donald Trump against his protectionist policies. You've talked about fighting fire with fire. That's a bold statement. What do you mean when you say that?
Well, exactly what I said. We can't let our country get trampled on again by Trump the way it did under Trudeau. And President Trump would obviously love to keep Trudeau in office because he can walk all over him. And that's what he did last time. He forced Trudeau to sign a bad deal that kept in place tariffs on softwood lumber, that kept in place Buy America, shutting out our construction companies from American infrastructure projects. And we've lost $500 billion Canadian investment dollars to the U.S. under Trudeau. That's Canadian money building American businesses and paying American wages. Enough. I want to bring that money home. So I will, first of all, I'll be cutting taxes on work, investment, energy, and making stuff in Canada so we can bring home production and paychecks to this country. In the next round of NAFTA negotiations, I'll fight for an end to the softwood lumber tariffs that Trudeau has allowed the Americans to reimpose on Canada after the earlier Conservative government got them lifted.
Would it be a tit-for-tat situation, though? Does this mean...
Well, you have to, if the Americans hit us with unfair tariffs, that you have to hit back, of course. I mean, we've seen how Justin Trudeau being a pushover has resulted in us losing so many jobs and opportunities to America. You know, when Trudeau took office, median income in Canada was the same as in the United States. Today, 9 years later, per capita GDP, that's per person income, is $22,000 higher in the US than it is over here in Canada. Our workers get 55 cents of investment for every dollar of investment south of the border. It's clear why President Trump wants to create jobs.
His voice cracked there, eh?
Takes jobs from Canada for America. It's clear why President Trump wants to create jobs, takes south of the border. It's clear why President Trump wants to create jobs.
He never has a voice crack. That's nice to hear. You know, that's what I mean. It's like he's so good at holding himself together sometimes. It's funny when you see real
He's
Pierre.
doing his Riz voice all the time.
Pierre with the glasses slipping out.
Takes jobs from Canada for Americans. It's not clear why Justin Trudeau wants to help him. We need a strong Canadian Prime Minister with the brains and backbone to fight for our country and put our people first.
Okay, I want to turn to the situation in the Middle East. As you know, the International Criminal Court has issued a
Yeah, he did. He said that he'll have to be punished if he's. Yeah, he didn't really say specifically, but he said. Rob pointed out, we were talking about it on stream yesterday, and Rob, I said, yeah, basically, he didn't say he wouldn't, didn't say he would or wouldn't, and then in a way, though, he kind of said he would because he said we punish war criminals, kind of thing. So.
Warrants against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his former defense minister, Hamas officials. The Prime Minister was asked about this yesterday. He said he would abide by international law. What is your response, Mr. Polyev?
I think it's just another example about how radical and wildly woke our Prime Minister has become, that he's now
wildly woke.
I mean,
disagreed with President
leaders
Biden.
are split over this, aren't they?
On this, and said that he would arrest the democratically elected leader of a liberal democracy. He hasn't ever said he would arrest the Ayatollah of Iran, whose government wants to fire nuclear missiles at both Israel and the United States, that has carried out genocide against people in Syria. He seems to have no problem with any of that. He cozies up with dictators and terrorists around the world, but yet he wants to lock up the leaders of democratically elected countries. It's no wonder that Justin Trudeau is seen as a joke on the world stage. We need a leader who stands by our liberal democratic friends around the world against terrorists and tyrants, and that's the kind of leader I will be.
That's a good answer.
So we're basically, that's all we really have for today for everybody. So we wanted to just go over the whole GST tax cut, what that really meant for people. We kind of watched the announcement live yesterday. So I kind of wanted to, the news cycle didn't really catch up till like 4 or 5 o'clock last night. So I thought it was a good opportunity to kind of go over this today. Seemed to be on everybody's minds between this and immigration, seem to be the biggest concerns right now to people, and you know what they're going to do for all of this. But yeah, I don't know, like what are your final thoughts on this, Saul?
I don't know. The ICC thing's wild. It's not the ICJ though. It's two different things. Right?
Well, I meant just the GST tax cut. Sorry, back to get back to topic. I
Sorry.
I kind of let it play there, but they went off topic.
Distracted. Yeah, the ICC and the ICJ are different because the ICJ hasn't declared it like a genocide or anything. I guess the ICC is, they're bringing these people in to try them for war crimes. That's the ideal, but it's just, I don't know. It's silly because yeah, they're right. Like, has the Ayatollah of Iran been issued an arrest warrant, or like have these other people who have done, you know, whatever crime? Because who's the one doing the stuff in Yemen? That's like, is that Saudi? No, it's the Yemeni government.
So yeah, I'm glad to hear your thoughts on the GST tax cut, Saul.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I think, okay, so ultimately, I think what I would say is that it's probably like people are gonna, if I was an NDP voter, or if I was like somebody in the House of Commons, I would say sure, let's do it. If I was somebody trying to get Trudeau elected, I would not do it. That seems like a stupid plan. It's very short-sighted. It's here, one sec.
Okay, well, I'll give my final thoughts on this when Saul is doing that. So basically, I think it's a okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I just think it's short-sighted. They're not looking forward to the future. Like the way that they're doing this right now is, I don't know. And then if I was the Conservatives too, I would say the same thing that I would say. Yeah, sure, provide them with some relief, but we need to provide the real relief, which would be getting Justin Trudeau out of the office.
You know what the real relief would be?
Our priority right now is not and should not be these short-term Band-Aid solutions. We should be focused on something more long-term, right? But
yeah, and
wait,
that's well put.
Can I hear you right now?
I don't know. Can you hear me? You're asking me if I. What I was gonna say is, who wouldn't enjoy? I can hear you, Saul. I was gonna say, who wouldn't enjoy a cardboard-sized a life-size cardboard cutout of Polly making this face? Yeah, I can hear you, and they can hear you. I don't know what's going on, Saul, with your audio, but anyways. So my final thoughts on this is, yeah, definitely. I think it's a Band-Aid solution. It's not gonna end up doing anything fully in the long run. It's just gonna piss people off more when it's over, I think. And thanks everybody who was saying, good show and everything. We really appreciate the support. We love to hear what you're happy about too. Like sometimes reading the comments, some of them are, most of the time comments in anything are usually really negative. Chat's always usually really positive. But it's nice to see some positive comments and stuff like that as well, because it helps us keep our motors running and keeps fueling us, keep the steam going, kind of thing. But Saul's having some technical difficulties.
I'm back. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was my my headphones were hooked up to my phone too, and then someone called me, and it was like jibbing out.
No, it's all good. I know we got a budget set up right now, because we're not big enough on YouTube yet to have.
Well, I'm gonna buy a new phone like this week for Black Friday sales or whatever.
Yeah, but it's funny because you're using your phone as your camera, right? That's what's fun. That's why
I'm gonna keep on using this too, because I was looking at cameras on Amazon, and there's a better camera on this than like most webcams.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate everything and all you guys who support us and are in the Discord as well and come out to every stream. Like, we wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. You guys who are here all the time, the regulars and everything, you guys are the ones we do this for. You guys are worth 100 people, the people who just passed through. So thanks again for all your help in helping this show be as successful as it is so far. And we hope we get even more success in the future and build this show and grow it into something even greater than what it is today. And yeah, there will be a weekend stream tomorrow. I will be streaming tomorrow at 1 p.m. PST. I don't know if Saul will be joining me yet. He's just hearing about this now. Usually I won't stream on weekends, but tomorrow I just with my availability and my life and family are out all day. So I'm like, I'm home all day alone. I'm streaming. So at 1 p.m. PST, I will be streaming probably to like 4 PST max. Just kind of doing something like we did today, going over, I'm going to try and find a topic and just try and find everything I can dig up on that topic. And then we just spend like up to 3 hours going over it and reacting to news to the news cycle on it. Hopefully get more actual officials in that news cycle. That's the juiciest parts of it. And when it comes to the announcements, it's all about the reporter questions. That's where all the juiciness is. But thanks again, guys. Great show as always. Thanks, Saul and Justus and Saul. Well, thanks again, Autumn. Thanks again, everybody. I don't know if Saul's still here and he wants to say thank you as well, but I think we lost him, but I think he's having technical difficulties. But anyways, thanks guys a lot. Please like the stream. Thanks to those who liked it already. And yeah, if you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. We have like over 11,000 regular viewers on the stream and we only have 2,000 subscribers. So if you're one of those 9,000 unsubscribed regular viewers, please subscribe now.
Hey, Just, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, now you can hear you, Saul.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm on my phone now. My power just flickered off and on. After
Okay, that's
yeah,
okay.
everything in my house shut off.
Well, we're still live. So if you want to say any final words or goodbyes.
Oh no, I think I said. I mean, could people hear me when I was talking before? I was just saying basically, yeah. Like I think that it's short-term relief. It's not ideal, and that's the way that people should be. In my opinion, that's how they should be talking about it, and just saying like, hey, if you want to solve the long-term problem, you got to vote for us. And for now, sure, Trudeau's throwing you guys a bone, but don't take the bone. But don't take it as anything more than that.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone wants to take a bone from Trudeau. You take that with what you will.
It's money. It's money.
Meeting.
The bone is made out of money. Why would you not take it?
Well, I don't want to know about Trudeau's bone. I don't care about Trudeau's bone. That's all.
It's made out of money.
Is it? It's made out of lies and maple syrup.
$200,
Anyways, guys,
$250 and a GST extension.